This is Godzilla, the Scarlet King.
What even is that?
Welcome to the family, son.
69 species of SCP, cryptids, and a casual zombie apocalypse have invaded the dinosaur landscape, and I have 100 days to tame every single one. And by the way, the Kaiju and SCP type spawn rates will progressively get worse throughout the video.
Is he inside my base?
Until they were 10 times higher than they should be. I think I went a little overboard. So without further ado, I present to you the death of my sanity. This video is sponsored by War Thunder, but more on them later. On day 1, a man named Carl woke up in the Highlands, confused, naked, and handsome. I tried to say hello to some other survivors, but then this happened. Everyone was infected, including me. And 5 seconds later, after watching Cthulhu himself play Mortal Kombat with a fish, he was actually a pretty chill guy, but due to my infection, I perished. So Carl reincarnated next to a degenerate.
Ow.
And the spawn rates haven't even started increasing yet, but
What is that?
the SCP were already breaching containment. I need to get out of here. So I did the normal ARK stuff. I punched a tree to the death like a man, grabbed the rock, and crafted a pickaxe with my bare hands, which I used to blackmail an infinity stone for some flint and craft a hatchet. Everything was going great, and I even managed to make 5 spears to fend off the paparazzi. I stole that man's entire arm, which marks SCP number 1 out of 69. Since zombies are not tameable, I just needed to kill one for the counter. But all the SCP on the other undead hand have to be tamed, and that's gonna be much more difficult. But Carl's fate was repeated by this fella.
Bro's built like a bag of milk.
Oh! The bloater's explosion broke both of Carl's kneecaps, so I broke my spear off inside the eye socket of a heathen, but he had lost way too much blood, and Carl fainted right there on the beat. I'm so cooked. And long story short, I got deleted. Zombies take 100 times more damage to the head because, you know, zombie brains, which is why my spear was doing 700 if you're wondering. But this time, I decided to spawn in the easy zone. And at the time, I didn't know why my screen had this Instagram filter on it. Looks like I'm drunk or something, but it was actually one of the Euclid SCPs, and you'll see that later. The fact that he's rendered in from all the way over here is definitely concerning.
Why are there so many dead people?
I'm not scared, you are. The night consisted of me running a zombie train while reliving my glory days from Origins on Black Ops 2, stream sniping some fish doing an out of water challenge on the beach, and being executed by a dragon.
Dragon?
Good times. On day 2, it was so cold outside that I broke my leg, which resulted in me contracting death. So this time, I spawned on the other side of Viking Bay. I made some tools, and I tried to tame this chopstick, but he was too busy fearing for his life to eat right now. Me too, buddy. My new goal was to find a pteranodon to get away from this awful place. So after I introduced myself to this fine gentleman, hey, how's it going, dude? And then excommunicating him from life, I began to head inland because a cave seems like the only safe option right now. But then this happened.
What is that?
Hi, sisters.
What is that?
They'll never get me up here. So after getting suplexed by a hoodlum, I ran out of stamina and I perished. Carl needs to do more cardio. So this time, I spawned in the jungle, where I immediately came face to face with a zombified dodo. So I crafted a spear and sent it through his nostril. All of his hide was rotten and disgusting. I wasn't exactly sure what it was used for at the time. So I evaluated the knowledge inside my brain, and I can craft these summoners for tamed versions of some of the heathens in this world, but I need element and other stuff that I don't exactly have on day 2. So instead I opted for some bows, arrows, and Z arrows, whatever that is. Found a trike that ended it all. And it wasn't long before the moment of peace was over. The paparazzi have found me again. Come here, boy.
How much health do you have?
It was pretty clear at this point that the zombies would never stop spawning, and when nighttime hits, it's only gonna get worse. Also, the SCP spawn rates are ramping up.
Okay, I know I've been saying this a lot, but what is that?
I'm so scared right now. And if I'm not prepared when the rates get too out of hand, I'm never gonna be able to leave the spawn area. I really needed to get moving. So after Cthulhu himself stared into my soul, hi, I'm just gonna go this way. The zombies basically make it impossible to stay in one place.
What was that?
But I had my sights set on the jungle cave, and I was almost there. I just had to cross the river using this conveniently placed tree bridge, and as Cthulhu decimated a mere mortal in the distance, that man's getting destroyed right now. I'm glad that's not me. So I farmed a bow and some arrows to defend my honor, and with heathens everywhere, I entered the cave. Putting some water in between me and my mortal enemies seemed like a good idea at the time. But what I didn't account for, however, was that some SCP spawn inside the water. If only then I knew what I know now writing this script. Anyways, inside the water were some otters, which is great, but there was also infected leech looking dudes, but I made it. Barely. At this point, it was lunchtime, so I placed 53 Tinto berries into Carl's esophagus, and I noticed something else lurking inside. This cave was actually perfect, but I had no idea if that Birdman fella is friendly or degenerate. It's probably the latter. I needed a spyglass to find out, meaning I needed some crystal, but I also needed somewhere to sleep tonight, so I mined the only tree in existence, crafted a bed, and I heard the sound of hope. What is that noise? Oh, it's an airplane.
Yes, science!
Wait, no, come back. There's probably a care package up there for me somewhere, but I live here now, and zombies are literally spawning in my living room. Holy damage. Like I was saying earlier, these are zombies. So normal shots hit like a ramen noodle, but headshots will immediately send them to the Shadow Realm. And that bloater that ate too much Taco Bell earlier let me borrow his canned Chef Boyardee raviolis. So I stole both of that man's legs. One of this other fellas, might as well title this video Zombies versus Jeffrey Dahmer. By the way, the bloater is just one of several variants of zombies, but I still considered them all zombies, and the count is still 1 out of 69 SCP defeated. Anyways, I made an apocalypse workstation, and I was looking at a recipe to clip toenails from someone's severed leg and use them as chitin when this happened. Wait. Oh, what? Nighttime had approached, and I was surrounded. None of these guys were invited to my apartment, yet these two fast dudes, who are called Juggernauts, were not gonna let me get any sleep tonight. Why is this man carrying 2 tires? That guy was only level 40, but he had like 50k health, and these zombies were bad enough. But when I start seeing more SCP and cryptids as the spawn rates get 10 times higher, it's gonna get 10 times worse. And just like that, my bow broke. All of my gear was in the workbench. There was a poor soul drowning in my indoor pool, and some of the zombies even had full-on careers. A scientist? Bill Nye the Scientist guy gave me a syringe after I brutally decapitated him, but the Juggernaut eventually got stuck on my bed. What, are you waiting for something, buddy? Can you not? But he was level 145, meaning he most likely has over 100,000 health. Okay, yeah, this is insane. There's no way that I have enough ammo to take these dudes down. So I kited Mr. Juggernaut, leader of heathens, into the pit of doom, executed another science major, and returned to my humble abode. Wait. Where's my bed? They destroyed my bed? My luxury memory foam California king-size mattress has been deleted. But luckily, nighttime was over, and all of the yellow-eyed zombies have despawned for now. That was absolutely terrifying, but when there's a blood moon on some of the random nights, I won't spoil it, but it's pretty bad. Anyways, the not-so-micro-looking raptor over there was playing Ring Around the Rosie. And you know sometimes when, like, you can't really explain why you did something, you just kind of really wanted to do it? Well, I wanted to see if he was friendly. He was not.
You done messed up, AA!
This man was called a Snallygaster. Not exactly an SCP, but a cryptid, which I also installed with the increasing spawn rates. But for some reason, I wasn't dead. The Snallygaster was simply carrying me in his razor-toothed mouth. I broke off 2 spears on that dangly thing in the back of his throat. His IQ levels are clearly suboptimal, and he wasn't even eating. And here's a little life lesson for when you want to get out of a situation. Simply log out of the game. Mr. Birdman dropped me while I was on the ARK loading screen of doom, which resulted in death. So Carl reincarnated on the beach. And on the way back, I spectated the local Trike Wazowski ping pong tournament. I don't even know what this thing is. I snuck past World War III Eldritch Edition and met some disgusting specimens. Ew, dude, get away from me. But after swimming a triathlon, I made it back, and Mr. Birdman was gone. How's it going, dude? There was a little cave down there inside the cave. So I figured that would be a good place to barricade myself inside for the night and cower in fear. So that happened. Things were not going well. The spawn rates were steadily increasing. The guy that's built like a lobster over there is making me question my will to live. And every time I see a care package drop from that airplane, I get flashbacks to the PvP days. But I'm not talking about the PvP in ARK. I'm talking about the PvP in War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's completely free on PC, console, and even mobile devices. So you can play while you're on the go. With over 2,500 customizable tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations, War Thunder offers intense combat, realistic graphics, detailed vehicles, and authentic sound effects that make you think there's a helicopter in your living room. But my personal favorite part of the game is the way the damage is modeled. From disabling enemy fire to armor, shells, and missiles behaving just like they would in real life, each individual component is shown. And this is important because everything is susceptible to damage. And with the X-ray view, you see exactly what components are affected, which is super cool. But no matter what type of player you are, you can pick between arcade, simulator, or even realistic modes. And with a community of over 70 million players, the PvP experience is like no other. So now that I casually convinced you to enter the military, digitally of course, download War Thunder for completely free on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and mobile, using my link below. And if you're a new player or you've been out of the game for 6 months on PC or console, you'll get some free premium vehicles, 100k Silver Lion, 7 days of premium account, and the exclusive vehicle decorator, Eagle of Valor. The free battalion of goodies won't last long though, so make sure to click that link below, and thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. The cave inside of the cave was actually perfect, caveception, but I needed to find a way to keep out the degenerates. So on day 4, after recreating the massive pit house from Carl's past life, I wanted to build a wall. These CDW defense gates look really cool, and that's the goal, but I needed some minting paste first. So for now, I decided to go with stone and pray to the SCP gods that some random troglodyte won't go Super Smash Bros on my base. And after eviscerating some heathens, I constructed some walls, built an entire gate in approximately 0.8 seconds. But then, the news reporters came out of nowhere.
Why are there so many dead people?
I refused all of their interviews, stole their legs as a souvenir, and finished constructing on the Great Cave Wall of China. Well, kinda. I ran out of wood. I was pretty reluctant to leave the safety of my cave inside a cave, but it had to be done. There was a surface entrance that went up, where I farmed some fiber for cloth armor, farmed some wood as fast as Carl's little arms could do it, and I got out of there. Back at my humble abode, I unlocked some things inside my brain.
Knowledge.
Apparently, the washing machine turns rotten hide into normal hide.
Are you saying I can wear a shirt made from the skin of dead people? This mod's awesome.
I finished off day 4 by going mining in my living room, crafting a refining forge, smelting metal in my bedroom,
Someone cooked here.
meal prepping the remains of Trike Wazowski, making a smithy, a pickaxe, beating up a rock, and advancing to the Metal Age. And now, after 4 entire days, my goal was to tame a Pteranodon and explore this SCP-infested world. And maybe find the care package from that rescue team that pretends I don't exist. Anyways, I was way too scared to leave at night, despite the zombies politely knocking on my door. They only do 1 damage to my walls per hit, and this wall does have 10k health, but these dudes are 100% gonna break into my house, and I need better defenses. Luckily, I have tons of legs from my victims, and each leg gives me 5 fingernails, obviously, so I should have all the chitin I need for a PT side. On day 5, apparently SCP-173 has been summoned.
Please stay away from me.
At the time, I didn't know why it made my screen look like I'm high or something, but it went away. So I made some bolas laced by arrows with bedtime stories, and despite fearing for my life, I headed out into the forest, aka the hometown of hoodlums, to find a Pteranodon. But as soon as I made it outside, I blinked. No, like, actually, the game said I blinked. The SCP-173 was really close, and I was absolutely terrified. I didn't see any PTs nearby, but there was a tappy. So after I, aggressively blinked again, I yeeted a bola at that man's toenail. Cut that part out. But luckily, I had some rare flowers on me. And if you take a bite of one of these things, every living citizen within a 25 light year radius gets a sudden urge to remove your life, which gave me just enough time to launch a few of my best-selling bedtime stories into the kidney of a Birdman. Good night. It was only level 25, which is definitely not great, but a flyer is a flyer. And now I just needed some meat to gaslight him with, and then he'd be my friend. And nearby, I just so happened to find some. So I began to lower the health of Bowser's kneecap, but then this happened. I was assaulted by a rap god. So I tied up Slim Shady, launched my second bestseller directly into his frontal lobe, and then proceeded to finish off Bowser's kneecap. And now that I had some raw Bowser, I placed it somewhere in between that man's trachea and vocal cords, which will surely result in us being BFFs. It took like 10 minutes, and I had to protect my sleeping beauty from some local paparazzi. But the SWAT police officer looking dude dropped some tech binoculars. Ooh. These are like the Rolex of spyglasses, and to be honest, I've only used these like twice. But anyway, my new best buddy woke up from his slumber, and I named him Dorito. Welcome to the family, son. I left Dorito on this rock for now because I didn't have a saddle and I wanted to check the level of a hash-slinging slasher in the distance so I could defend my honor. He was only level 20. But then, on the way back, after I got physically, emotionally, spiritually, theoretically, and metaphorically assaulted by a cult of bugmen, I returned to Dorito being zombified. Dorito, run! Back at base, I noticed that this yellow card I got from an undead cop was used to unlock yellow locks, whatever that means. Oh, I thought he was giving me a penalty. I was still too low of a level for a tappy saddle though, and for flak to clothe Carl. And before I could leave this awful place, I needed some armor and a humble narcoberry farmer. So I extorted some fiber from the local greenhouse, and I was searching for Trike Wazowski when this happened. What is... Oh! Ew, get away! This was in fact an SCP-1013. He looks like a massive pego, and I hate him already. But at least I'm safe up here. Oh no. Luckily, he got distracted on Perry the Parasaur. Thanks for your service, bud. And after farming some metal, I met a zombie doggo.
What the dog doing?
Who gifted me a disease. You're already dead. Well, thanks for giving me hope. There was also a quadruple XP moon out tonight, which would have been cool, but, you know, I got deleted. And I wish that I could say the pain ended there. But things were brewing all day, and nightfall had just began. Outside my gate, I found this pumpkin head looking fella, and he was healing me. Apparently, he's a passive temp. Tickle monster healing. Fair enough. So I wanted to grab some berries and see if I could tame the dude. But somehow, a news reporter who wanted an exclusive interview spawned inside my closet. Dorito eviscerated that man. But as the clock struck 10 p.m., the horde began to spawn on both sides of the gate. Oh no, oh no. I tried to whistle Dorito out of there. I really did. But he kept getting stuck and I was surrounded. No, Dorito! Dorito was in the afterlife, and the zombies were relentlessly assaulting my expertly designed stone wall. But as long as they stay away from the bed, it should be okay. So I decided to leave and try to get my stuff back in the meantime. And on day 6, up at the surface, the undead doggo was gone. At least that's what I thought. I was once again infected with undeath, and I did manage to kite this imbecile off a cliff, have fun down there, and heal up using this pumpkin connoisseur. Ooh, free hide. I wanted to make a cure for my disease, but it requires a med kit, which requires every resource on the face of the earth. They got tariffs here too, huh? So instead, I queued up some metal, and there's only one way out, and it's kind of disgusting. And once I reincarnated in my living room, I disposed of someone's corpse so I wouldn't get infected again. And I had just enough metal to attend Public Decency 101. Carl now has pants. So when I finally got the courage to go outside and touch grass, #introvert, the paparazzi were all waiting for me. Per usual. But I refused all of their interviews and I made my way outside, where I met this level 145 hash-slinging slasher. I also found some plant species X seeds, which I haven't used any of these since the PvP days, but these are basically plants that gun down degenerates. Anyways, the level 145 theory would allow me to farm narcotics and execute news reporters that break into my house. I really wanted to tame the dude, so I headed back inside, crafted the rest of my outfit for the day, so some projectiles. Bro, how did you get in here? Dododeck says it'll take 57 shots or 38 to his dome. And I had the arrows, but not the hardcore drugs. So I headed back to the surface to touch grass again, and I wanted to make sure that this dude stayed trapped. That'll hold him. Never mind.
So I built this cage to keep him secure so there's no possible, oh my god.
I almost perished, but I ran so far away that I managed to make it up this mountain where I finally found crystal to make a spyglass. But then, this happened. I was all out of bullets, but I managed to take down the rap god and his brother-in-law, but at this point, nightfall was approaching, and I really needed to get out of there. That's a big boy over there. So I made some parachutes with my bare hands, sniped an ant with a crossbow. Got a saddle for a Chalicotherium that I'll never use from this yellow drop, and it was now day 7. The zombies are already on insane spawn rates, as you can tell, but the SCP and Cryptids are probably around 2 to 3 times right now. They will increase as time goes on, and eventually they'll get to 10 times and even higher than that, and it's probably going to crash my server. And I also put all of the SCP in biome-specific spawns, so each part of the map will have unique ones, and not all 69 can spawn in the same place. Anyways, the policeman that just became one with my arrow had a 434 Ascendant pup shotgun. Yo! And he also had this catch pole, which can be used to literally enslave zombies if I find a collar. By the way, that shotgun is not anywhere near as good as it sounds because the SCP have like millions of health. But anyway, when I enter my house, can I help you? This buffoon was so obsessed with my front door that he didn't mind me launching projectiles into his eyebrow. And he gave me yet another tire. Gee, thanks. Wait, could I make like a motorcycle or something with that? I had enough narco berries to queue 50 more narcotics, make an awesome spyglass, repair my crossbow, and make some more trank arrows. And all that was left for Mr. Therazino to become mine was to make a trap. And if you've never seen this, the awesome spyglass here is just like any ordinary spyglass, but awesome. For example, we can see that this MrMeola Intuka has 11k torpor, meaning he has insomnia. Is that a bloater? Anyways, the level 145 Theory must have went on vacation or something, and the night of day 7 was approaching fast. Oh, there he is. I had to act fast. Ah! Begone, heathen. The trap was set, and there were paparazzi everywhere. And this was bad enough as it is, but to make matters worse, Edward Scissorhands over here decided to walk the plank. Why are you all the way down there? I tried to get his attention, it didn't work, but everything was going wrong. And it just kept getting worse. And somehow Mr. Edward Scissorhands was all the way down in the water. Really, bro? And SCP-4715. Dude, he's in my cave. I really wanted to see what this degenerate looked like, and that is where it all went even more wrong. What? Is that a chupacabra? Oh, I'm so cooked. Carl got deleted. Well, the spawn rates have increased. I used my entire life savings to make a new set of shining armor for our knight named Carl, and I made my way back. The chupacabra was gone. So I was thinking maybe it was like a nighttime creature or something, but the other dude, well, just take a look. What on earth is that? Bro is the biggest snake of all time.
I'm a snake.
I tried to investigate. That is one lanky boy. But then I got scared. I need to get away from here as fast as possible. So after pulverizing a thug and stealing his granola bar, I decided to trap this level 90 Theory because the 145 is being insubordinate at the moment. And I was about to trap the dude, but then this happened. What is that noise? The airplane that's like never gonna actually rescue me came back. And on the way there, I saw an SCP defense tank giving a mere mortal some electroshock therapy. I sentenced a pickpocket to death. And I witnessed cannibalism firsthand. Despicable. I couldn't find the airdrop though, only some parasites. And after wasting like half of the day, I decided to head back towards the giant scary dude in the sky and finally trap the theory. But of course, there was yet another degenerate. The level 90 theory was not very bright, but eventually I led him to the trap. And then this happened. Oh no! This man jumped over the wall, and I was on life support at this point. So I used a med pack that I got from a dead person, placed an extra wall here as a backboard, and tried again. Oh no. Edward Scissorhands was now contained, but so was my femur. I could barely walk, and nightfall was approaching. It wasn't long before I was surrounded, and somehow this man jumped over a wall. What? Inevitably, Carl became a sandwich. I don't particularly enjoy being eaten by zombies, so I waited out the night inside my panic room, but on day 9, I had tried again. Everything was going great until Mr. Theory's ex-wife showed up. For some reason, she just started 360 trick-shotting on my ramp, and everything was good, I guess. But I kind of forgot to place the last wall, and, help! Yeah, that went well. My next attempt consisted of a juggernaut and some technical difficulties.
Why are you running?
But long story short, this man was running free range around the jungle, and I somehow still managed to knock him out, but under the water.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
I was kind of in denial, and I wanted to see if I could still tame the dude, but on 3 times rates, the taming is gonna take like 20 minutes, and his lungs would only take about 2. This was getting super annoying, and I decided to give up on the theory for now. I just wanted to get out of here. I don't even want to know what's making that sound. But there was a 150 raptor over on the rock. And then I magically learned how to cook calcified meat. How did I learn that? Meat encased in rock. SCP-1013 wouldn't have it any other way. Did that man just implant a recipe into my frontal cortex? Where even is he? And what is that? This dude had 78,000 health at level 45. So while he was busy being a menace to society, I decided to incapacitate this level 150 gentleman and his step-cousin, and I sent both of their consciousness to the Shadow Realm. And here's a little life tip for you guys. If you ever want someone to be your friend, just forcibly put them to sleep, like so, and then just sneak 50 entire slices of raw Pegomastax underneath their tongue. And that's how you brainwash a normie. Works every time. How did you get back there? It took 9 entire days, but I could finally defend myself, and it was time to get some revenge. It was now day 10, and the paparazzi was determined as ever. But with Yoshi and Noob Destroyer by my side, I was about ready to move bases. And one of the SWAT zombie dudes dropped this collar, so I can literally enslave a news reporter. Anyways, I repaired my armor and crossbow, and I didn't actually repair my armor because I'm out of metal. Guess we're not wearing pants today. And I opened my gate just long enough to accidentally let an undead pedestrian inside. Come here, boy. I wasn't really sure what this even does, but now I have a zombie in my inventory that allegedly improves production of workstations. You'll see more on that later. So after becoming a part-time exterminator, I made some soul traps, and then I randomly got this chibi of an SCP-1471A. What even are you, bro? I think one of these guys must have died in frontline combat within my render distance or something. But anyways, the soul traps are basically just cryopods, but they can be used on giant mod creatures, whereas normal cryopods cannot. And now my new goal was to tame a Pteranodon and leave. But then I saw this. What in tarnation? Oh, he's aggroed. This yellow looking dude was vomiting all over my front lawn. But luckily I managed to lose aggro when I saw this. Oh, there's another one. There's another degenerate. The spawn rates are increasing pretty fast, so I headed back towards the beach, where I found some parasites, but I also found a 150 Pteranodon. Victory! You have no idea how happy I am to see you. That man did not stand a chance at pulling an all-nighter because I made him a glass of warm milk and propelled 2 bedtime stories directly into his earlobe. He slept like a baby. But on day 11, after I was out searching for prime meat that I did not find, the paparazzi were here. I panicked at the disco, and somehow I missed a shot, and I regret to inform you guys this, but that mistake cost Terry his life. Most of everything is hard to find because there's thousands of degenerates dedicated to making the dinosaurs go extinct, but I did manage to find another one. A level 95. Obviously that's not great, and I just had a 150, but it'll work. So I prepped him for nap time, and I was actually out of my best-selling bedtime stories. So instead, I bludgeoned him in the face with a tree branch, and it definitely didn't work. I really needed more trank arrows, so I hope he survives, but I had to head back. And on the way, I discovered that this yellow sociopath is tamed using banana chunks. Not the actual banana, only chunks of it. Anyways, I returned back to my humble abode, where I realized I have no narcotics.
They ask you how you are.
So I went berry picking, where I heard a voice whisper in my ear. I'm not gonna lie, my man, I didn't understand a word that you just said. The spawn rates were clearly increasing, as there were thousands of Scarlet Kings on my map. Oh my. Well, actually there were like 5, but I prefer 0. Anyways, I farmed some berries while under the influence of a mutant. So I returned to my lab, chemically engineered some sleep potions, and when I returned, well, 174,000 health. That's terrifying. I stuck to the left side, but there was also a bunyip or whatever that is, and there was another one inside the water playing Super Smash Bros with a civilian. But despite that 174k dude's filter on my screen giving me a headache, I was laser focused on taming this level 95 PT. But when I arrived, bro refused to come down for dinner. Can you please land? So in the meantime, I improved the sleep of this parasaur, and I informed him that he now exists with the sole purpose to farm me narcoberries, and we shall call him Jar Jar. Anyways, now that the PT was indisposed, and I made sure that this time to keep an eye out for crazy fangirls, oh no! So there I was, getting some much needed beauty sleep. But Yoshi was on passive, and I needed this sleep so badly that I didn't even care about the undead police officer trying to murder me. My health was dropping, but so was my torpor. It was super close, but I lived, and so did Terabyte. On day 12, I headed back, and I found this cute little SCP. Well, he was halfway cute. That's kind of disturbing. I tried to passive tame him by feeding him raw paparazzi, but apparently he only eats fish meat. There was also an SCP-1000 on that rock, and bro kind of looks like Harambe. Ow. But moving along, that scary SCP dude was doing the radiation thing on my screen again, and it makes the video look really bad. But long story short, I went around past the giant level 12 bunyip, went synchronized swimming past some parasites, and arrived at my cave-like penthouse. And after making some designer saddles for Terabyte and Jar Jar, putting them inside of a Pokeball, I wanted to see if there was a way to stop that scary SCP man from making my game look like I'm wearing 3D glasses at the movie theater. And I found an engram inside my brain for SCP repellent, which I assume could help, but it requires flesh that hates. Okay then. There were also some spawners for a few different SCP that I'll look more into later, because right now, I have wings, and it was finally time to move out of my cave-like apartment and go explore this very dangerous world. interesting. And I think I decided where I want to live. It had to be somewhere that's easy to defend and also has a lot of room. Also somewhere SCP can't just walk into my living room, and you're about to find out where that is. Because right now, I was just trying to figure out what to leave behind. I barely had the essentials, but Terabyte has a max wing press of like 10 ounces, so I had to leave even more behind, and Terabyte is still encumbered, so I decided to slay some reporters to level up Terabyte enough to slowly fly. I was flying slowly, and my zombie plague level was at 40%. It's not great. And since Terabyte is slower than my grandma, I had to be super careful and make sure I was landing for stam in the right place. Yeah, this map isn't scary at all. Throughout my journey, I found a few interesting creatures. There was a Nigerian fire spitter, man's over there spitting flames on SoundCloud, a literal overseer, the Rock cosplaying as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, a DJ forcing an innocent civilian to dance the night away, and whatever that is making the noise of intergalactic warfare. Oh, it's just a tentacle monster. Fair enough. But eventually, it was day 15. And after E.T. gave me a concussion, I avoided the giant void worm looking dude that's face scanning an innocent bystander, and I introduced myself to this egghead looking dude, the unclean one. Bro, go take a shower. And just like that, I had arrived at my destination, the southwest mountain that borders the Greenlands and the desert. My plan was to barricade myself up here way high away from all of the degenerates, but before I could set anything up, I saw an airplane. Bro was dropping so many care packages that I had flashbacks to Nuketown from Black Ops 1. But I was actually finally able to get my hands on one. These crates require a yellow card to open. I think I need to start committing more penalties. This one was full of medical supplies, which definitely could be useful. And medical supplies are great, but the other yellow crate had even more. It's a bit overkill, but alright. But now it was finally time. So after I dissected a heathen and stole his brain, tasty. I feel like the game is gaslighting me into eating this. Anyways, it's time to make my way back to the mountain, slowly, and set up a massive military complex. Well, the start of one anyways. When I'm done with this place, the paparazzi are gonna wish they chose a different profession. But for now, I had to continue using Yoshi to defend my life, and this undead war criminal dropped an Ascendant AK-47 and straight up a rocket launcher. Oh, you should not have let me get a hold of this. So I cryopotted Terabyte, gave Yoshi a part-time job as a security guard. You get $1.27 an hour and you can keep their legs. Sign here, please. Which gave Jar Jar the emotional support he so dearly needed while becoming my indentured friend. He's gonna farm narco berries for 28 hours straight. Help me! There was also an armor loot crate here, which I want, but I have no more yellow cards. And my main goal for now was to tame an SCP. So I brutally assaulted some descendants of Rockwell to upgrade my floor to the Stone Age so it doesn't get raided by paparazzi. I also made a mortar and pestle and a Tranks plus mortar and pestle, which if you haven't seen these before, they essentially combine 10, 50, 500 narcotics into one super effective bedtime story, which is 1000% necessary when the local heathens have hundreds of thousands of torpor. So anyways, I queued up some narcotics, made some arrows from the Stone Age, and while those were busy crafting and the paparazzi was busy being eviscerated by my new security team, I needed to at least put walls on my mountaintop studio apartment, so I farmed an exorbitant amount of stone, and I was about to farm some wood as well, but nightfall approached, and all of a sudden, there were fangirls everywhere. It seems I'm the center of attention, and I had an idea. Hey guys, watch this. Boom. The night was quite explosive, and I enjoyed it a bit too much. What? Bro's got a world record neck. But I farmed the rest of the ingredients, built a perfectly square house with windows to see the paparazzi coming from a mile away, furnished my new condo with some tables I bought from Costco, and all that was left was to get some metal cooking. So I headed outside, and apparently I have heat stroke. There was a harvest moon, and there was also a giant atmospheric jellyfish. Is that the king jelly? I wasn't prepared for jellyfishing today. So on day 17, I put Yoshi and his noob destroyer brother in a Pokeball to set out and mine some metal. I then attended a cooking class, and I fought a sumo wrestler to the death. I think he won. And I didn't notice before, but Yoshi got this insane long neck rifle from one of the ops earlier. I was actually gonna make one of these for the Tranks plus darts anyways, but this is just nuts, bro. Anyways, I know I really should make some walls and some turrets to defend my hometown, but right now, I wanted some action. I wanted to domesticate my first SCP. So I unlocked some new editions of my best-selling bedtime stories, and these are 10 and 50 times more effective than the originals. This 50 times trank arrow deals 15,000 torpor in a crossbow. Imagine if I miss and waste the shot. Step 1 was to find my first test subject to experiment the effectiveness of my new bedtime stories. And the rock over here on the mountain who's casually cosplaying as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, I would love to tame that guy, but he don't need no man. So I headed north and I came across someone's underground lair straight out of a supervillain's playbook, and I came across Mr. Pumpkinhead again. He's a vegan for health reasons, so I picked some of the purple berries from the farmer's market, stuck them inside his jack-o'-lantern, and I named him Pumpkinhead before I proceeded to pick him up and wear him as a hat. SCP 2 out of 69. I now had the healer for our party, but I still needed an SCP that can actually fight. So I continued on and found this giant monstrosity that looks like he's definitely not natty. I can't tell if he looks like a gas bags or my next meal from Red Lobster, but either way, I don't have enormous kibble to tame him right now. So I continued my expedition, and I found giant fireballs raining from the sky. What is going on? Oh, it's just the Tasmanian devil himself. Okay, carry along. And this Ferox looking dude that's bouncing around like he just discovered sugar for the first time. By the way, he has 150,000 torpor, and my arrows are kind of inferior. But this 1471A over here is a passive tame, and he also just so happens to be the one I have a chibi of. So I gently fed him some berries. He low-key wanted to murder me, but every time he tried to swing, he got distracted by how good the berries tasted. It was actually so weird though, like this man was straight up aggroed on me, spitting flames at one point, but every time he tried to kill me, I just shoved some Mayho berries right in between his vocal cords, and bro couldn't help but enjoy it. You're not you when you're hungry. 3 out of 69. I'll test him out in a second, because over past the rock, who has 2 million health, by the way, I didn't notice that before, this snake-looking dude looked pretty decent, but he was near the dude that never skips neck day, and that Bronto looking man is actually the source of this weird filter on my screen. Why does he have an emo haircut, bro?
What? Dad, no school has a Jamba Juice in it. This isn't a shopping mall. I'm about to have a panic attack at the disco right now.
His default emo attack is kind of bad. He does have a ground slam, but also bad. And finally, he has a slice, but you guessed it, he's still down bad. He's a disappointment to my family, but at least he's got a 3-foot-long tongue. So I named him Kevin. And after making some arrows and leaving my pumpkin head home alone, I put Kevin in a ball, and he had 2 entire heads inside his inventory. Kevin's low-key giving serial killer vibes. But anyways, I wanted to be able to trank from the safety of the sky. And to do that, I should probably tame a griffin. I had enough arrows, so I set out, and then I blink 182'd. Who is making me blink? It turns out the culprit of my eye strain was the dude running faster than Usain Bolt over there. He's not tameable though. Well, that's no fun. Prevent turning to stone. Anyways, I slayed a rotten zombie, and I found another neck day advocate who put a TikTok filter on my screen. Apparently, these guys are passive tame, but he's also a Euclid, which is a subclass of SCP that I didn't really quite understand yet. But Harambe is a Keter, which is the other subclass. But then, this happened. All these SCP and the Microraptors are still the worst. So I had my recording paused, but I located a level 90 griffin, I loaded a 50-time best-selling bedtime story into the bow, and I launched it directly into his dopamine receptor. He ran. I waited until he was in a safe enough area, read him another story, and now he was ready for bed. Gee, I sure wish there was some prime meat nearby. I was actually talking about the stego, but I'll take the free meat. Anyways, I waited patiently on top of this pillar for the rest of the night while paparazzi y'all spawned below. And on day 19, McGriffin was finally tamed. And the main reason I wanted a McGriffin is because I can shoot my crossbow while I'm on his back, like this. Terabyte isn't sophisticated enough for that. But anyways, I needed more tranks, so I headed back, saw some nevermore flaming RGs exploding in thin air, tried to fight a fish on land, which resulted in McGriffin getting waterboarded, and then I decided to tame the neck day guy, hoping he'd share his gem split with me. He is a passive tame, which is why I tried to tame him, but he also takes like 60 berries, and every time he steps anywhere near me, the force of his size 93 foot takes 5 years off my life, and it took a while, like a while. And the paparazzi caused a couple taming drops, but 20 minutes later, he was tamed. SCP-4 out of 69. I thought having him tamed would make his Instagram filter go away, but it was still here. And after naming him Carl Jr. because the resemblance is uncanny, not to be confused with Carl's Jr. by the way, I put him in the world's most spacious cryopod, and the Instagram filter went away. Luckily, I can craft SCP repellent to make them usable without the filter, but I do need some crops going to make it. And I want you guys to actually watch my video, so I'm gonna cryo him to get rid of that for now. And my new goal was to tame an SCP that's a bit better than Kevin.
They ask you how you are.
So I took Jar Jar out to farm some more narco berries, and I also tested Carl Jr., but he doesn't have the Bronto tail thing, so the narco berry radius is kind of small. And now the last ingredient was spoiled meat, and you can actually use rotten zombie meat for this. Wait, isn't normal zombie meat already rotten? Anyways, the zombie meat still wasn't enough. So I crafted a meat spoiler, which is incredibly expensive for some reason, and the paparazzi began trying to break into my house. I know it says 0 damage, but it's actually like 0.5, and if they do that for a couple days, they'll eventually get in. I needed a wall, and I needed some auto turrets as well, because after I made some spark powder and I spoiled some meat, I was about to craft some more tranks, but then this happened. What the? A bloater just raided my base. Dude! My smithy, my bed, my workbench, and my meat spoiler all got caught in the explosion. This was bad. Really bad. My bed was gone, and I was indecently exposed. So I became Bob the Builder and started fixing my base, but then it happened again. Yoshi, bro. You had one job, and to think I was gonna give you a 1/10 of a cent raise. Yoshi got fired. I spent the rest of the day reminiscing on what I once had. And I made a brand new bed from the flesh of undead news reporters. And just like that, day 20 came to an end. On day 21, another bloater tried to bomb Carl's house, but after exterminating the entire lineage of dead people, I began checking the luggage that they left behind. You better live your life now, because you can't take any of it when you're undead. And inside one of the bags from an ex-police, I found another yellow card, but more importantly, I found this. No way. This long-necked rifle was 400% damage. This was actually insane for knocking out heathens, and I managed to use the yellow card to unlock this armor crate nearby, which gave me some moderate profit. The meat spoiler was, well, it was spoiling, and I had enough meat to combine them into a 100 times and a 50 times trank dart respectively. This should be good enough for some of the mid-tier SCP, but I definitely can't just let paparazzi keep blowing open my wall. I needed a solution, maybe some homemade defenses. So I crafted some farmland and set up 2 pillars. I wanted to make sure that they were out of reach and they don't just get destroyed, but I still needed some fertilizer, and I knew just who to ask. The desert was an interesting place. Some of the most dangerous SCP spawn here, including this giant tentacle monster and Cthulhu himself. But luckily, I didn't need to go any further because I found him. He was hanging out with the homies, so I summoned Kevin to free up some of his time. And after collecting Kevin's fecal matter and forcing him to return to the Pokeball, it was time for a business meeting. He ate the whole thing in one bite, so I named him Reese's Feces. And back at base, I let Reese's Feces wander anywhere he wants, as long as it's within the 3x3 radius of my house, of course. But while I was doing some base stuff, nightfall approached. I probably should have went outside and made sure there were no bloaters, but that's not exactly what I did. And what happened next, well, why am I like this? My house had yet another hole in the wall, and the zombies began to flood in. Kevin saved my life that day with the help of a raptor named Yoshi, who I gave his job back, and I even tried to help out as well. Anyways, it was now day 22, and it was now clear that these degenerates will stop at nothing to rob my penthouse. I need these plants, a wall, and maybe even some auto turrets, and I need them now. So now that everything was mostly repaired, and I even had this apocalypse workbench thing that I can use to make stronger and more defensible structures and weapons, I needed a better method of grinding resources. So I began the search. Well, that man is healthy. And over in the southwest, directly above the Wyvern Cove, I found an entire family of humble metal farmers. So I located the best and brightest of the bunch, level 130. Loaded 10 times the recommended dose of melatonin into my crossbow, and generously helped him to improve his sleep. This dude was gonna take a while. And stealing an egg from the Wyvern Cove below was a pretty tempting way to pass the time, but like heathens. So yeah, that's how I spent my Friday night. It was now day 23. No! And other than the Broodmother impersonator over there behind the Yankee, and the fact that this man has 38% taming effectiveness, it went pretty well. My next goal was to tame an RG to carry Frank the Yankee. But over on this cliff, I found the SCP version of Harambe, and I was intrigued. This man was clearly a menace to society, but my 50 times Trank Dart with his OP long neck should be enough to put him in a coma. Ow! I think he overheard my monologue. So, I don't know why I'm like this, but I kind of forgot to check what he eats. Why 909 substance? What even is that? Bro eats only processed food, and all I have is raw meat. But anyways, Yoshi ate pretty good that day. RGs are supposed to spawn over by Greenop, but so are beavers, and more importantly, they're beaver dams. The beavers were, preoccupied at the moment. Man's playing Mortal Kombat with an alien. So I wiped out their entire neighborhood because I need cementing paste, and I found an Ovis. Wait, that is not an Ovis. He still gave me mutton though, which is the best food in the game besides kibble. And the only thing left for the RG tame was, well, actually finding an RG. I checked the Greenop grasslands, the redwoods, the canyon, found a Managarmr looking dude with like 12 tails that eats pretty much everything except raw meat. Okay then. And I even checked the Deadlands by Viking Bay. Is that Doug? 9k health. What a loser. Doug, you have definitely glowed down since the last time I've seen you. But in the Deadlands, Doug's neighbor was this giant snake man in the ground. Oh my. He had pretty low torpors, so after missing like a buffoon, I put him into a slumber. While he was incapacitated, I forced him to eat some electric Ovis from the Greenop. It brainwashed him into being my friend, and the giant SCP-722 marked SCP-5 out of 69. I put him in the pod though because there was a heathen nearby. I was kind of tempted to tame this unclean one just so I could give him a shower, but the dude took 20 seconds to kill a vulture. How do you have 20k health and are this bad, bro? So I continued on, and over on the cliff, I found one. Well, not actually. It's not an RG, but he was a giant SCP Birdman. What is that? This giant red Titan SCP thing was terrorizing the entire family lineage of lumberjacks. I can't fight that guy right now though, so I turned my focus back to this giant pair of wings. I only had the yellow times 100 sleep dart, which is extreme overkill and it's really a waste. But what was even more of a waste, yeah, that was embarrassing. So yeah, I wasted 200 narcotics curing that man's insomnia, and then I realized he's a pescatarian. So I accepted his quest to go fishing, but not any ordinary fishing. You see kids, this is how you go fishing like a man. It took the entire rest of day 23 for her to finish her dessert, but on day 24, marked SCP-6 out of 69. And she's gonna be Frank's new chauffeur during his grueling 26-hour shifts on the metal grind. Heck, grenade mode? I have to try that. This video took a lot of time and a lot of emotional trauma. So if you're enjoying it and or if you're a Moss Chops, please consider subscribing. I'm on the road to 200k and I need your help to make it happen. Also, let me know in the comments below if any of these games on screen right now look like something you would want to see me make a 100 days video on. I appreciate every single one of you and just have an amazing day. It was time to head back and hope my base was still standing. But first, I decided to steal some paste from a local Home Depot. The lumberjacks that worked here were a bit upset, but they'll get over it. I also stopped by this waterfall cave that we had a base in on Small Tribes PvP like 5 years ago, but after overdosing on nostalgia, it was time to actually head back. I had to reroute because Godzilla ARK was chilling in the canyon, and you will literally disintegrate out of thin air by just being in his aura. But eventually, we made it home, and the base was still standing. So Yoshi clocked in for his evening shift at defending my honor, and I crafted one more 50 times and 6 10 times trank darts. Everyone's getting sleep tonight. While I was gone earlier, Reese's Feces was putting in that work, and I can now plant some pea shooters. Yoshi, get back here, young man. I don't know why Yoshi just traveled 3 miles to murder Simba, but that Scarlet King in the snow over there is looking pretty intimidating. Anyways, I finally planted some Plant X seeds, and I watered them using some random liquids that I found in the pockets of undead news reporters, and I fed them using Reese's Feces. And I finished off the day by taking Frank out for his first unpaid shift of many. Hawk Tua had some pretty solid weight, but trying to turn feels like I'm driving a semi-truck without wheels. But anyways, I managed to farm about 10k raw metal, so I popcorned it all into the base. Big profit. And now, we cook. The plant species X were fully grown at this point, and I wanted to test out the giant SCP snake, but she was so long that it was almost impossible to even hit my target. Bro's built like a ramen noodle. But she also has this roar attack that causes toxins to enter the eardrums of her enemies, raising their torpor. And since she was toxic, I named her Karen. These concrete defense walls actually take raw metal to craft, so I don't even have to cook it, but I will need some more cementing paste and some ingots for barbed wire to keep out all these unwanted guests. But for now, I decided to just let that man cook, because not only do I have to tame every species of degenerate, but the ones with millions of health, like the Scarlet King and Tasmanian Devil, are untamable. So my plan was to befriend my enemy, which would be the best SCP I can find, and then breed my enemy until I have an entire boss army to take them down. So I began my search yet again. And over on the desert island, I found this giant alligator from Ohio. But he had 77,000 torpor, and the 50k trank darts only do like 11k. I'm coming back for you. The Tranks Plus Plus is kind of weird though in terms of balance, because it feels way too overpowered for the normal stuff, but for stuff like that, it would take 700 regular trank arrows, so yeah. Anyways, there was another rock cosplaying as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but this one only had 31k instead of 2 million, and he was actually tameable. The Devourer's Feast. I don't know how to get that, but I really appreciate how the tameable variant of this guy is about 100 times worse than the untameable one. Anyways, the giant-looking Ferox dude is a pretty strong contender for starting a family from Alabama. I mean, boss army. But he does have 180k torpor, and eventually he will be mine. Anyways, I didn't want to leave empty-handed. So when I saw this gamer that hasn't showered since ARK Ascended dropped, I knew what I must do. So I pulled out my rifle, the one with the long neck, and I proceeded to launch a dart laced with lullabies directly into the unclean one's spinal cord. He slept like a baby, an unclean baby. Unfortunately, some fire-type degenerates ruined the man's taming effectiveness, but after placing some mutton inside his sad excuse for a face, nightfall approached. Luckily, the paparazzi have not evolved enough to fly, at least not yet. And after some waiting around, SCP-093 was tam number 7 out of 69. And he may hate taking showers, but he sure did love decapitating pedestrians. I think he's the best one so far, but obviously that's not saying that much. I needed some better trank arrows, so I was gonna head back. But when I came across the Wyvern Cove, I had an idea. While I was landing for stamina, I witnessed Charizard put a mere mortal in a flaming spin cycle. But nothing out here matters, because all the eggs are right past this miscreant and under this little gap over the water. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Wyvern Cove. It took a minute to lose aggro, but I wanted to make sure that I left here with a top tier Wyvern. No level 50 or 15. We want the level 175 lightning. It's so close, yet so far away. It was right in that nest, but this firefighter would not leave. Hey look, it's Taylor Swift. And now, it was go time. They got the whole Wyvern Mafia. Somehow, I made it. That is one
ugly fella. No offense, of course. So I had a Wyvern egg and I made it back, but also I really need better defenses and it's about time I stopped procrastinating on that. So on day 26, I decided to go for it. I'm gonna turn this place into a military compound. Level 1000? Bro, what kind of forge is that? Anyways, what I was saying was, I'm not getting bullied by dead people anymore. I wanted to make sure that this gate was centered, because if it's not, I'll lose my mind and probably mutate into a new form of SCP. And I decided to queue up one of each of the different types of CDW walls, because I have no idea what the difference is. That's gonna take a while. Apparently, Carl can't build a giant concrete wall in 2 seconds. But after Yoshi miraculously cured the plague, I placed a gate with a doorway that is perfectly sized for Carl. And I then evaluated my options. We have this great looking thing, a filler piece which is quite literally the exact same as the regular one, I'm pretty sure, the up and down piece which I think is for building on a mountain or something, and the corner piece. So I just queued up a bunch more regular stuff. Well, that's one way to blow through 2,000 stone. And I also wanted to upgrade my base to the metal age, but the metal was still cooking. And nightfall was approaching. Oh, Karen! It was now day 27, and Carl is getting pretty attached to Karen. No, like, literally, I'm stuck, bro. I can't move. And after I regained movement in my legs, I got stuck in the doorway, and then in my backyard. And there's not even anything here. Anyways, I needed more stone for the gates, so I took my coworkers on a business trip to kill some rocks and farm some Neanderthals. By the way, this little spot on Ragnarok is amazing for metal if you're ever building around this desert border area. So, yeah. Substantial profit. 20 concrete walls were finished constructing and ready to hold back some heathens. All of that just to protect me from some fat dude exploding my stone 3x3. My smithy was like overflowed with water bottles, so I just kind of dropped all the empty ones on the floor. Hashtag littering. And I was able to construct 6 more concrete walls with Carl's bare hands. Actually, he doesn't even use his hands. He just kind of watches as they construct themselves. But I was all out of cementing paste, so after decorating my bedroom with 3 more forges and decimating a hoodlum, bro, there's no way I just missed those shots. I'm being gaslit right now. So, back to me needing cementing paste. It was now time to rob a beaver at gunpoint in front of his entire family. So I made my way to the river, stole the infrastructure of the life's work of an oversized rodent, and somehow I managed to blame it on these micro-raptor looking SCP dudes. And while the Revolutionary War was going down, I wiped out their entire village in secret. A Puerto Rican chupacabra? Bro, there's a dinosaur right there. Puerto Rico doesn't exist yet. The bag was secure, and I was making my exit when I saw this horseman being assaulted by paparazzi. So I decided to help out. It must be super hard to get sleep when the news reporters are trying to interview you. You're welcome, buddy. For some reason, I keep choosing to tame things in the middle of the night during the apocalypse. But after Kevin exterminated an entire civilization of news reporters, I had some pretty insane loot. Shock arrows, a rocket launcher, 4 shot callers, homing missiles, 25 shotgun shells, 20 role-playing games. These zombies are just giving me ways to kill them. Anyways, it was now day 28. That's the face only a mother could love. And I taught this man to conquer his fears by eating them. I think it worked pretty well. SCP-3456, aka a centaur from Ohio, was number 8 out of 169. And bro, first of all, that man's esophagus looks like a black hole. And second of all, this man is faster than the speed of light. His attack arsenal included horse teeth, throwing hands, and he can also just, you know, step on people until they perish. Get in the pod, Kevin. I was so distracted by the centaur from Ohio that I didn't even realize. Oh no, McGriffin! McGriffin was being assaulted by a degenerate. This entire time, he was down to 100 health. I'm so sorry, bro. Luckily, he was still alive, but I definitely need to be more careful. Anyways, back at base, I pet a pumpkin head and then convinced him to heal McGriffin. And somehow, I have this chibi that has an anglerfish picture. That does not seem to be an anglerfish. So I used the paste to craft some more walls. Aw, do you want to come in and eat me? Poor little degenerate. The rest of the walls were finally finished. And the wall was looking great. And Yoshi and the shower hater would stop anyone that still manages to get inside or spawn inside for some reason. But I still wanted more. And I'm also out of cooked meat. So after I put 30 granola bars that I stole from my undead neighbors into my hotbar, I went outside. Never mind, I went back inside. And I summoned Yoshi. So I know it's a little bit overkill to do anything after this, but I was reminiscing on my PvP era, and I had some pretty big plans for this base by the end of the video, but more on that later. Because right now, it was time to domesticate some freaks. And to do that, I needed some more trank darts. Somehow, zombies were spawning in, well, actually, on top of my base, but even when they refuse to play Plants vs. Zombies by leaving the plants line of sight, Yoshi shows them no mercy. I'm proud of you, son. Keep that up and you'll get that 10th of a cent raise in no time. So I headed out. For some reason, I always do this at nighttime, but before I could make it too far, I spotted this MrMeola Intuka. He had 22k torpor, meaning I'd need to hit 4 headshots to knock him out. And I was about to try it, but then 2 degenerates with the latest face scan technology pushed Mr. Intuka off the cliff. And the worst part, he didn't even have a parachute. Mr. Intuka has been defeated, and I decided to shift my focus to this iPhone 73. He had 9k torpor, and if I land 3 or 4 body shots, we should be good. But then, this happened. McGriffin, help, bro! No matter how many degenerates I add into the game, Microraptors will forever be my mortal enemy. But anyways, I launched a few darts into the bullseye on his love handle, and he tried to run from a good night's sleep, but I wasn't gonna let that happen. The SCP-745 was down, and after kiting away his future ex-wife, I grabbed some mutton from my base, and I returned to a Nigerian fire spitter standing in the forest, menacingly. I had a window of opportunity, at least I thought I did. So I stuck the mutton in between his 2 front teeth, and then, well, Carl got air fried. Ow! No, 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 no! Luckily, I had a new best friend, and he face scanned that man and sent him back to Nigeria, where he can spit flames in peace. And after peer pressuring him into fighting his ex-wife to the death, I returned back to my humble abode, where I witnessed a jellyfish the size of Godzilla floating nearby. Please just stay over there. And I named him Facescan, marking SCP number 9 out of 69. The dude had some pretty cool features, and he seems stronger than the shower hater, and stronger than Kevin, of course. Also, I want to make sure that none of them die throughout this challenge. That way, I have a huge army to fight the Scarlet King on day 100. Anyways, Facescan is my new daily driver. He might be nocturnal, kind of like the Megalosaurus. And if that's the case, he is weaker at night, but it should be fine. Because it was now day 29. And that man has 300k torpor. I was over by the green obelisk because the yellow flowers on Ragnarok are one of the best berry farm locations in the entire game. What even are you? I didn't have any tranks for that guy, but I used Carl Jr. to harvest every flower with even a hint of yellow pigment from the earth. He's definitely no Bronto, and I'm not a fan of having a migraine with this filtered thing on my screen, but he did pretty well. I wanted to farm more, to be honest, but I had to leave because that giant Sarco thing with a skeleton for a face has 100k health and was kind of freaking me out. But I managed to get 3,000 narco berries. Dude, calm down. Back at base, I queued up 590 narcotics, which sounds like a lot, but in reality, it'll make me like 15 trank darts. My security system, however, was working pretty well. Unfortunately though, the narcotics were gonna take a while. So I decided in the meantime to make some standing torches and incubate this wyvern egg from earlier.
One eternity later.
Lightning McWing was born. I was pretty worried that he would get kidnapped by the paparazzi, so I assigned Kevin as a babysitter. In hindsight, I probably should have gave him somebody better to be raised by. He's gonna grow up to be a serial arsonist or something. But I spent the rest of the night doing some base stuff. It was now day 30, and the narcotics be brewing. So I made some gunpowder and crafted some rifle ammo to turn into 2 50 times and 12 10 times melatonin darts. And Lightning McWing, who was in his teenage moody era, was wanting some wyvern milk. He thinks Carl's his mother, but please don't tell him. So I put him into a Pokeball to reflect on his actions, and once I released him, the request was much more reasonable.
Lightning McWing is on his way to becoming a full-grown man. But while I was waiting on the rest of the narcotics, I decided to set out and tame some of the easier, more boring stuff. And over on the mountain, I found the exact opposite of easy and boring. That Godzilla ARK has 164 million torpor. And he's a knockout tame. Excuse me. But I said excuse me right there. I sounded like Kermit the Frog. Excuse me. There is a special knockout method for a few of the bigger guys, but Godzilla ARK also eats irradiated fish meat, and you'll see more on that later. But McGriffin was low-key starving, so I fed him some fried terror chicken for breakfast. And Mr. Tentacle, who wants to strangle me, is pretty far from easy, I think. But Cthulhu over here was a passive tame. He does eat raw mutton, but it would take 30 and probably like 30 minutes as well. And honey would only take 3. So after that green man Naruto ran into a wall and then called upon Zeus himself to bring electricity upon the world. Yeah, I'm gonna come back when I have honey, because nearby I found a Snallygaster. This was that cretin that kidnapped me in my house cave on day 3. So I kidnapped him instead. Oh, how the turns have tabled. And even though for some reason he prefers unfiltered beer, well, you're eating mutton today, buddy, and you're going to like it. So while that dude was detoxing from his alcohol addiction, I explored the area. And I came across that weird Dilo thing that spits on people for fun. So I summoned Facescan, rid the world of saber-toothed degenerates, and I made sure that man would never spit again. But this weirdo eats calcified meat for some reason, so I hit a rock with an axe and added it to my famous mutton recipe. And while he enjoyed some unconscious cuisine, I checked on the Snallygaster, who was only 20% tamed and already about to wake up. And look, man, I know what you're about to say, and I get it. First, I get crucified in the comments for playing on a controller, and watch you guys see me shoot this unconscious dude with a tranq dart and ruin the taming effectiveness. I'm about to get flogged. Anyway, Swashbuckler over here was tamed, marking SCP number 10 out of 69, and the Snallygaster, well, he was probably gonna take another 4 more tranks and another 30 more minutes. But we'll never know that because I accidentally let him wake up. Oh, come on. I didn't really want to wait all of that time again, so I think I'm gonna make some beer and come back later. So as I continued on, there weren't any SCP on the island of the Megalania lizard gods, but I spent the night passive taming this fish out of water, who was very slow, he was kind of strong, and Swashbuckler, my shoulder heathen, was also putting in work, doing 4 damage from my shoulder. It's the thought that counts. SCP number 11 out of 69. I'm not gonna question why some of these dudes are untamable and then other ones that look like identical twins 10 foot away are tameable, but anyways. On day 31, I found an SCP-323 over by Green Op, and this moose looking guy eats literal human flesh. Seems legit. I didn't question that either. I just made a blood extraction syringe. Actually, I found one in the back alley, and I proceeded to extract a pint of blood from Carl's forearm, and after mixing it with some raw meat, voila. Raw Carl. But I kind of didn't read the description of the moose, and he doesn't just eat it. Apparently, I need to tame an SCP-939 first, and then let that dude get brutally murdered as a distraction, while I sneak up and secretly sneak some human flesh into his lunch. It's like a whole heist, like I'm James Bond, but with a moose that eats human flesh. So I continued on, and I set my sights on a level 165 Amela Intuka. This guy had 20k torpor, so I loaded my best-selling bedtime story. You can check it out on Amazon in the link below. I only had 2 of these 50 times tranks, and I had to make sure that I hit the shot. And I did, but then I may have ruined the taming effectiveness before it even began. Why? But 5 mutton and 10 minutes later, he became my son. And I don't know what an Intuka is, but he looks like a trike. So I named him Trike Tyson, marking SCP-12 out of 69. And the first cryptid we found so far. The narcotics were probably done cooking by now, but I continued on. And after stealing the life's work of a beehive, witnessing a cult of our robot overlords, I found this monstrosity breaking the Richter scale. Bro looks like a mixture of Red Lobster, a bearded dragon, and that one dude on my 600-pound life. He only eats enormous kibble, which apparently is a concoction of 15 extraordinary kibble and fish meat, meaning
Making 9 enormous kibble for an enormous fella is gonna require me to make 135 extraordinary kibble. That's kind of a lot. I was a little bit flabbergasted by that, but then this happened. Did bro just sit on me? I couldn't move, like, at all. So I was kind of forced to hit the dude. I decided to take a nostalgia break and visit my childhood home. There wasn't much left here after the departure, but I'll take the spoiled meat, I guess. Anyways, this area is still terrible. I went to the Deadlands. What incrustation? There was an alien life form, a fire spitter from Nigeria, and that one kid that never showers after gym class. The Nigerian fire spitter actually says untamable on my spyglass, but the cryptid mod page actually says he's a passive tam. I'm gonna have to figure that one out because last time he tried to deep fry Carl, but after the alien life form probed an innocent shower hater, I decided to go for it. No way it's this easy. It actually was this easy, but the hard part was when McGriffin was like glitched out for some reason and the dude started playing Let's Disobey Justify mid-tame. Bro, where are you going? Luckily, I had my AK-47 to defend Carl, but McGriffin was just hovering over the water. At this point, I was spamming whistles like Flow Rida. McGriffin was pretending I didn't exist, and this giant blue cretin here was still not hungry after 5 minutes. The day wasn't gonna last much longer, and if night hits, this could be bad, really bad. But this man must have had a big lunch or something, because 10 minutes in, and he still wasn't hungry. But then, this happened. No, please! I somehow survived for about 5 seconds. McGriffin, what in the actual... Are you just gonna pretend like that didn't happen? Oh no, I got roasted. So I respawned once again, and after outrunning an army of goblins, I made it back. Nightfall was approaching fast though, so I summoned my face scanner, got some revenge. What's wrong, buddy? You don't like face scan technology? And somehow, I genuinely don't know how, but this lobster-looking dude was still not hungry. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say you have an eating disorder, my guy. And to make matters worse, the apocalypse had begun, and McGriffin was still in the sky. McGriffin, please, I promise I won't force you to eat raw zombie anymore. On day 32, I face scanned some heathens. Mr. Alien Lobster was still not hungry, and I needed a way to get to McGriffin. So I decided to make some parachutes. Used my super speed thing to get up this mountain. Gunned down a leech with an AK-47, and it was time to save McGriffin. No! Carl broke his kneecaps, so I headed back yet again, tried to feed a crustacean. He wasn't hungry. I don't even want to know what that is. And the dude took a while, so long story short, I gunned down a cat, contracted death. Dude, farmed some fiber, made a parachute, and failed to use it because I can't sprint as a zombie. But then, it finally happened. Mr. Krabs was ready for dinner. Apparently this man was over here doing boss fights while I was busy repeatedly dying, but the second feed didn't take anywhere near as long as the first. And just like that, the SCP-3700 marked TAM number 13 out of 69. No way you're 360 no-scoping right now. So after I died from being a zombie and miraculously reconstructed on the beach, I finally got to test out Leonardo da Vinci. He got nerfed from the 200k health, but 47k is still kind of insane, and the man has 996,000 oxygen, because why not? So the game literally says that McGriffin is following me, but like, no he's not. So I just logged off the game, and it actually fixed McGriffin's brain. And at this point, I actually gave Leonardo da Vinci his name. Why is there a summoner here? Alright, I'm gonna head out. I'll see y'all later. Over by the Beaver's Lumberjack Paradise, I found the red SCP-939. And I remembered him being the one from that moose dude's description earlier. You know, the one that eats literal human flesh. This man only had 3k torpor, so I gave him a sleep potion, fed him some mutton, and slightly hinted at the fact that a moose is gonna eat him today. But Moose Bait was TAM number 14 out of 69. And I didn't test him too much, but he has no eyeballs, and he does the same attack that I do after Taco Tuesday. Another airplane was passing over to drop supplies for the survivors. But like, bro, I'm right here. How can you just pretend you don't see Carl right now? What a jerk. I had another yellow card though after that recent soccer game. So I looted this armor drop. So at least I'm not running around in my underwear anymore after Leonardo da Vinci declothed Carl swag. And on day 33, I trekked through the highlands. Everything here is very large. And the serpent from the Chamber of Secrets is rendered in all the way over there, but the alpha variant of the SCP-939 was here as well. So I decided to summon a lobster to fight on my behalf. It's time for Leonardo da Vinci's debut. Alpha Moose Bait was SCP-15 out of 69. And there was also an alpha version of the fish out of water over here as well. But before I started fighting that guy, I figured out that pressing Q on my keyboard made Leonardo da Vinci do a 360 no-scope. And even better, this man can crab dance.
I got my hands on your body, so tell me what you want me to do.
That was actually amazing.
Or be nodding, because there ain't no
His attacks were so slow that he was stun locked for the entire time. 16 out of 69. And don't worry, there's not that many. There's like 5 alpha variants on the list, and 2 of them are things with like 2 million health, so yeah. So I was on my way back over to that creepy moose guy that eats human flesh, but I decided to take the scenic route. The artifact of the Brute on Ragnarok is like the easiest artifact of all time, just sitting here with no parental supervision. And maybe I'll do a boss fight, who knows. But what I didn't know is what this giant red thing is growing in the redwood. I can actually damage it, and it can also damage me. It even tried to choke out McGriffin. So I'm just gonna ignore that, and I was going to tame Cthulhu, but he was still Naruto running and playing Mortal Kombat with the paparazzi. So I made my way to Greenop, where I came across a little kitty. Well, half of a little kitty. That's still so creepy. So I went to the store to buy some fish sticks and tame the guy. I'm telling you guys, this is the new meta. You gotta start fishing like a purebred American. So I kind of forgot where the dude was and I wasted like 5 minutes, but we're back. It was gonna take roughly 6 fish meat, and I don't want to know what happens after it's digested. But a few minutes later, Garfield the Halfling marked tame number 17 out of 69. To this day, I still don't know what this thing does. But since nightfall was approaching, I decided to head back to my bunker. Lightning McWing was now a full-grown winged man. And as the sun rose on day 34, I headed back to Greenock. I still don't know how to get bananas specifically in chunk form for this heathen who apparently is called Bananazilla. You'll see that later. And this other one just got farmed by Frank's mother-in-law. Must have thought he was a metal rock or something. But anyways, I was heading back to Mr. Mooseman to feed him some human flesh. But once I arrived, he was gone. The dude went on vacation and didn't even tell me. So I decided to shift my focus and I headed back home when I noticed a visitor soliciting unwanted Instagram filters.
You need to pee.
It's a little bit overpowered how Leonardo da Vinci can just stun something this large, but it doesn't actually work on the more powerful stuff, so it's not that crazy. Get wrecked. Anyways, I really wanted to get something better so I could start a boss army. And I remember that I haven't tested Trike Tyson yet because he needs a saddle. Having a saddle means he takes less damage, and in terms of the damage he deals, well, Trike Tyson is definitely a fitting name. Overall, I was pretty impressed, but I still think there's much better options out there. Sorry, Mr. Intuka. And to do that, I would need to start writing some new bedtime stories. Okay, so watch how fast I get encumbered here. 3 times harvesting rate, by the way. Yeah, the yellow flowers are not natty. I accidentally farmed more berries than Mick Griffin's little wings can handle, so I had to drop like 5k. And flying home took the entire night, but once I arrived, I spotted a moose man in my backyard. So I started ghostwriting some new lullabies, and it was time to finally sneak some human flesh into a moose's lunchbox. But, well, you know, zombie apocalypse. Why do I always do things during the apocalypse, bro? I spent half of day 35 doing some base stuff, and I had a ton of raw paparazzi becoming disgusting in the meat spoiler for when the narcotics are done. Unfortunately, this poor moose man accepted their interviews last night, but it was pretty obvious that I needed a faster method of writing bedtime stories. So I unlocked a chemistry bench, and while I was inside my brain, I spent some time to actually look over the engrams. At level 60, there were all kinds of new firearms that I could use to execute news reporters. America. And there was also a ton of other stuff for the SCPs and cryptids as well, including uranium dust, unstable aether, chaos aether, a uranium forge to make the stuff for Godzilla ARK, all these SCP reforming things. Oh, and literal nukes, you know, right next to Mothman's saddle here. Kim Jong-un would approve. I really hope I can complete all of this before day 100. But anyways, I needed to build a chem bench. So I got all my pearls into the fabricator for electronics, put some oil and hide into the forge to cook some gasoline, and I needed more polymer and crystal. So I set out and I saw Yoshi trying to escape the house. So I spent the rest of the day in the desert crystal cave swinging my pickaxe and using Trike Tyson to extrapolate some organic polymer from a squadron of manti. But right as I was about to leave, I spotted a reincarnation of Moose Man's brethren. So I summoned Moose Bait, put him on passive, and watched as the moose trained for WrestleMania. And then the apocalypse. Dude, the worst timing. I had to make sure the zombies didn't get the kill, but in the process, I made Moose Man kinda angry, and yeah, it didn't work. So on day 36, I flew home while contemplating why I attempted to tame something 3 seconds before the horde spawns every night. But I did have enough crystal and polymer, some spark powder was queued, and half of the electronics were being fabricated. I just needed some more silica pearls. Hey, how's it going, dude? So I made a scuba tank, dismantled some pearl necklaces from my victims to make some scuba flippers, and I set out. I could go to the ocean, but that's no fun, there's sharks there. And I woke up on the risky side of the bed this morning, so we're going pearl farming in the Wyvern Cove, baby. But then I saw the Moose Man's favorite lunch dish. He was beefing with the Dodic, and I swear I did not mean to, but instead of knocking him, I shot a trank dart into the Dodic's eyebrow. And Moose Bait just kept sparring the man while he was asleep. There, now it's a fair fight. I used a few pieces of raw mutton to convince him to die via moose later. Wait, was that you? Who taught you to say that? I'm pretty sure that's the sound from the, this emote. I knew it. Anyways, I decided to tame this fine, unconscious gentleman because I kind of felt bad for him. And it took a while, but eventually Rick was tamed. And why is he named Rick, you might ask? His name is Rick because he rolls.
I got my hands on your body.
Okay, I promise that's the last time I'll do that. Maybe. Anyways, I swam with some wyverns and stole all their pearls. Bye, losers. And on day 37, after crafting 100 more electronics, I finally made that chem bench. Can you kids keep it down? I'm working here. I need a generator too. Somehow I managed to mess this up and not connect the cable properly, so I made another. Bro, what even is this? I decided to just go with a vertical one, and yeah, I know it looks horrendous, but since the first cable was already hooked to it, I actually couldn't connect the new one. And here's the problem. The outlet is under the foundation with the chemistry bench on it. So I checked the inventories of my security detail and stole all of their pearl necklaces, which gave me just enough electronics to do this. That was painful to watch back. Oh, and by the way, I lied. I didn't have enough electronics. On the way back, I spotted E.T. trying to abduct some news reporting civilians. So I sent him into orbit, fed him some mutton from another world, and E.T. marked SCP number 18 out of 69. I just said like a fifth of the alphabet right there. On day 38, I arrived back at my humble abode and immediately heard the sounds of being raided. Wait, was that? Okay, it's this dude. I was making sure the Alpha Tribe wasn't raiding my base or something. Why does he make the sound of a structure getting demolished? Anyways, I finally made the chem bench. And these things will cook 4 narcotics at a time, and it does it even faster. So after a few minutes, I had enough narcotics to queue up 30 of the 10 times and 5 of the 50 times NyQuil supplements, which I used to lace onto bullets for my long-necked rifle. And after witnessing my friend group execute Bill Nye the Science Guy, it was time to put my brand new NyQuil supplements to the test. Never mind. I was scouting for something bigger this time, and over on the Southwest Island, I found a bunyip. I then proceeded to drug said bunyip via bedtime story. And this dude better be good, because he took 30 minutes to tame, and I pretty much just waited around, got jump scared by Godzilla ARK and Dwayne the Rudolph Johnson around the corner. But at the beginning of day 39, Perry the bodybuilding and potentially on steroids platypus marks tame number 19 out of 69. And after making him the best saddle on the market, that thing was expensive, you better not be a disappointment to the family. I took him out for a test drive. The basic attack was pretty solid. His stamina, on the other hand, was worse than a chain smoker. And this little slash attack thing that elongated this zombie spinal cord by 253 meters. What the nick? I also thought it was kind of cool how his third attack uses the tail from behind him, and you can just bonk dudes on the head. So far, the Cryptids have not disappointed, but overall, nothing has even been close to as cool as the Kaiju yet. So I'm really hoping that we see some of that with the bigger creatures. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case for this next guy, because over in the water, I found the giant serpent from my nightmares. He was doing some serpent stuff, but I was expecting this man to have over 1 million health, or at least 100,000. Yeah, the best I can do is 7. Bro is literally a catfish. But on the bright side, that makes my job easier. Apparently, you can extract Y909 substance from his unconscious serpent-like body, and that's the exact stuff that I need to tame Harambe. But his hitbox was so ginormous that I couldn't access the inventory, and I almost became shark bait in the process. But eventually, SCP-4000 was brainwashed into being my loyal servant. 20 out of 69. But don't let this guy's low health fool you, because this man was electric. It's super hard to control the giant SCP, and this might be the biggest one that's actually tameable. But we now have access to the ocean. And more importantly, we have access to this Y909 substance, which apparently can be used as a mind wipe if you ever get bored of brainwashing other people and you want to spice some things up and try it on yourself instead. But we have another use for it as well. Poor guy didn't know what hit him. Harambe marks SCP-21 out of 69. He still has a dart in his shoulder, and he may just be a smaller version of the Megapithecus boss model, but he has a special place in my heart. Anyways, I was about to say something extremely epic and then begin to montage, but instead, this happened. A blood moon? A blood moon means everything becomes aggressive, like a permanent rare flower effect. And I deal less damage and take more damage. I didn't even make it home before a pack of degenerates tried to assault McGriffin. So yeah, I decided to stay inside for the night. Kevin, what are you doing? Apparently, Kevin has a nightlife, and I'm not staying inside for the night. I had to go rescue him from the heathens, but after a long night of babysitting a scary SCP emo looking dude named Kevin, it was now day 40, and the spawn rates being set to 10 times was nowhere near as crazy as I thought it would be, since the SCP aren't really that big and they're more spaced out. So I may have just went into the simple spawners mod and cranked them up a lot higher. Oh, please no. The spawn rates are somewhere around 30 times at this point. I really need to knock out the easy stuff before it gets too crazy. And spoiler alert, I overdid it and it was already too late. Oh no, what have I done? I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I just made this world unplayable, but we're about to find out. So after using Leonardo da Vinci to crush my mortal enemy named Doug, 22 out of 69 by the way, I came across this ARK monster. There's gonna be some things that I haven't even seen yet now that the rates are higher, including this white guy. Wait, that didn't sound how I meant to say that. This white banshee looking nightmare who had 50k torpor. So I loaded one of the 50 times NyQuil arrows, which got him most of the way there. But then he converted to Buddhism. This man was meditating so efficiently that he began to bend the air around him. Luckily, his Kamehameha took longer than I did to read 3 more bedtime stories to that man, and he fell into a deep, creepy sleep. Eric the Erica monster over here marks tame number 23 out of 69. But before I could feed the white dude, the untamable boss version of Squidward tentacles began, slithering over. I really didn't want to lose the tame on the white dude, and I was feeling pretty confident of Leonardo's pinchers. Bring it on, Squidward. Who invited you guys? Squidward Tentacle Monster marks SCP-24 out of 69. If he was higher than level 16, I'm gonna be honest, I probably would have perished. But over in the desert, I located a sleeping white guy and placed some mutton beneath his dentures. He ate the whole thing in one bite. The SCP-096 marks tame number 25 out of 69. And bro, this man is so creepy. He kind of looks like the Paleheads from Resident Evil. So to reduce the creepiness, we're gonna just pretend that that's not blood on his mouth and assume that he likes to wear lipstick. So I named him James. Wait, no, that might be worse. James was an interesting creature. He had the basic punch and the ability to meditate on the haters. Bro, that did 0 damage. But his strongest attack was backhand slapping his foes. What a legend. So it was now day 41, and after passing my robot neighbors, I arrived at the Redwoods. I really wanted to tame that giant Ferox guy, because he has 174k torpor, but the problem is, well, he has 174k torpor. I really needed to make some 100 times darts. Bro, are they multiplying? But that Squidward tentacle fight from earlier gave me a bit of confidence, and I wanted to fight another big name in the industry. So I located this little pebble dude, the one that forces my eye sockets to blink every 10 seconds. I may not be able to beat him in a staring contest, but I sure can't. That wasn't supposed to happen. When I reincarnated in the Highlands, there was an alpha skeletal Rex looking dude that was staring at Carl. I had no time to waste though, because even though Leonardo da Vinci can definitely hold his own, I didn't cryo McGriffin. This could be really bad. So I sprinted to the Redwoods as fast as Carl's little chicken legs could take him, and I tried to run past this moose bait, but then he farted. Oh no! I tried to outrun the stench, but the gas cloud from his digestive tract had already entered Carl's nostril. Not like this. I got deleted. I have like all of my levels put into movement speed, so it's not really that difficult to outrun the normal dinosaurs. And I managed to make it back just in time. McGriffin, you're alive! Leonardo da Vinci was absolutely chilling, but the SCP-173 takes extremely reduced damage. It's almost like he's a rock or something. This fight was gonna take an hour at this point, so I summoned Trike Tyson and the creepy version of James Charles to help out my crustacean. This fight went on for over 10 minutes. But then, bro turned around and started running to his rock mother. And he's kinda fast. I thought I was safe, and I wanted to cryo Trike Tyson because he was getting dangerously low on health. But this dude spotted me dismount from 3 kilometers away, and Naruto ran over at the speed of light just to execute Carl. Really? Apparently when he's below half health, the guy just infinitely runs away, and I tried to catch up, but like, why is this dude so fast? So I cryoed Leonardo da Vinci, and I headed out on a very low health McGriffin. I'm not really sure how I managed to make the horse dudes always spawn in groups of like 6 at a time, but I was still kind of just flying around to make sure the map was actually stable and the spawn rates were all good. And eventually I made it over back to the SCP-610 Titan. Bro is a member of the Bloodthorhood, allegedly. I was a member of something similar back in the day. If you know, you know. Anyways, I wanted to fight the dude, so I landed McGriffin, and this SCP-079 defense tank tried to jump me, so I recycled him. 26 out of 69. The Beaver's lumberjack lake was filled to the brim with literal parasites, but I was more concerned with this Titan fella that looks like he drinks blood for a living. He only had 10k health, but he has this vampire type ability where he healed as he damaged. And despite him literally stealing the life force of my crustacean, it didn't really matter, because the dude kinda sucks. 27 out of 69. This Bloodthorhood initiate dropped some flesh that hates. I guess he was so much of a hater that he's even doing it from the afterlife. But I checked my engrams, and you can actually use this flesh that hates stuff to craft a tameable version of the SCP-610. So I guess he is technically tameable. So let's put that counter
back to 26 out of 69. I need some more flesh to craft one of these guys. But nightfall was quickly approaching, and it was another blood moon. I needed to get back to base. On the way home, I saw a level 145 of the scary Sarco SCP man. He had 500,000 torpor. Bro literally never sleeps. I think he might be a prime candidate for my SCP boss army, but I do need to make some of those 500 times trank darts because there's just no way, bro. Anyways, I continued into the canyon, where there was this random alpha fire wyvern for some reason, and also, I don't even know how to describe this, but I saw this guy. What the actual... I'm not sure if I'm scared or impressed. So I tried to stay away from that, and on day 42, I knocked out this Mothman. Yes, my recording was paused when I did it, and yes, I'm also a professional YouTuber. But anyways, the blood moon spawned a ton of alphas, and I was trying to protect this guy from an alpha raptor. And when I tell you that I did the bare minimum at that job, he has 0.6 health, and then I noticed he's a passive tam. Let's just pretend that didn't happen and move along. So I'm gonna go back down here in the canyon because I almost had a heart attack earlier and I didn't even record it. But down in the canyon, degenerates were everywhere. There were lake van monsters. I'm over here blinking every 5 seconds. Another one of those things, and in Ogo Pogo. I also located another member of the Dark Bloodthirhood who I pub stomped for his hateful flesh. And I then headed back to my humble abode. I actually had the SCP-610 Titanheart from that Dark Bloodthirhood guy, and it's used to tame that Managarmr thing with like 8 tails who eats people's organs. And over in the chem bench, the narcotics were all crafted. So I queued up some 50 times, 100 times, a ton of 10 times, and 3 500 times of the Trank ++ magical bedtime stories. I made 100 long neck bullets, and I then put my bedtime stories into projectile form. And it was now time to knock out the rest of the easy stuff so I can focus on the hard stuff and the boss fights. And when I say knock out, I mean that very literally. Mama Brood, 27 out of 69. Void Worm, 28 out of 69. Vance the Lake Van Monster, 29 out of 69. Champ, the Lake Champlain Monster, 30 out of 69. Ogo Pogo, dude took like 30 minutes to eat his dinner, 31 out of 69. The Overseer, 32 out of 69. Papa Pithecus, 33 out of 69. Okay, so can we just acknowledge that a random box is summoning mini wyverns that want to murder me? You guys saw that too? Okay, cool. Enhanced Enforcer, 34 out of 69. How? What? Who? Where? Why? I think I put too many things at that one spawn point. Also, I had my recording paused, so carry on. Bones Jr., and Bones McSkelly, 35 out of 69. Guero Chupacabra, 36 out of 69. Enhanced Strider, 38 out of 69. What is that? Centipede from Ohio, 39 out of 69. A purebred Puerto Rican, 40 out of 69. It was now day 50, and most of the boring knockout tames have been gaslit into following me home. There were a couple that I wanted to take for a test drive though, starting with Vance, the Lake Van Monster. Apparently I stole the lungs of a Bananazilla. But anyways, Vance had some pretty legit stats, and I got the health to 30k pretty easily. The issue, however, was this man has the metabolism of a snail, which is making him like slower and weaker. I'll probably test him later, but yeah, he's not reliable, so he's not really gonna get used. I also wanted to test the Centipede from Ohio, and his saddle gives you oxygen and insulation underwater. He's literally a submarine with too many legs. But the saddle was a bit outside my price range, so we'll do that later, because right now, well, after I saw this beneath James. How? I don't even want to know, dude. There were a couple tames that I still needed to check off, and the first one was this red fella with tails for days. These guys eat your heart out, like Jeffrey Dahmer. So I fed him 2 hearts and 2 lungs from my victims. But Dwayne the Rudolph Johnson was uncomfortably close. And the worst part, he was playing Dance Dance Revolution. As I sat on this rock, no pun intended, I watched helplessly as the reindeer cosplayer exterminated heathens, one by one. Now, I don't mind if he kills pegos for fun. In fact, I think that's a pretty noble cause. But he kept creeping closer and closer, until eventually he set his sights and his fist directly on top of Jeffrey Dahmer and his 85 tails. While he was distracted on another degenerate, I managed to get my organs back, but I was struggling to find another. There were 2 level 100s by the canyon, but they take 4 Titan hearts or 23 lungs, and I am an organ donor, but that's a bit outside my budget at the moment. So after crab walking this red guy for his hateful flesh, day 50 came to an end. But on day 51, I found another level 50. Never mind. And a non-zero amount of time has passed, but I found a level 80. It took a while to eat his hearty meal, but I patiently waited on this rock while the 7-nation army tried to recruit me from below, and 10 minutes later, Jeff marked SCP 41 out of 69. The dude's basic attack was kinda lame, but he had this heat vision mode and some other pounce and tailspin things, which is pretty cool. So I actually just learned something from the Cryptid wiki. What is happening right now? What I was saying was, I can actually craft one of the cryptids. This Freaky Friend is his name. I was all out of normal hide, so I used some raw paparazzi. And when they call him a freaky friend, well, he's definitely freaky. But Carl's new freaky homie marks SCP 42 out of 69. And the freaky homie is like a metal detector, but for degenerates. A degenerate detector, if you will. Cryptids are a lot rarer than SCP. I mean, they're still kind of common because my spawn rates are so high that the game crashes every 5 minutes, but to find them even easier when there's one nearby like the centipede from Ohio. He glows orange on Carl's back to alert me. So on day 52, I needed to come up with a plan. I was almost ready to start the boss army, but there were a few things I needed to take care of first. And the first task on my list was King Jelly. Lightning McWing was finally gonna get some playing time, but I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. Luckily, the dude only had 6k health. But then, this happened. Oh no, come on. Lightning McWing almost died from fall damage right there, which doesn't even make sense, but I stayed above his top and stayed away from his little stingers at the bottom. Overall, it went pretty well. In fact, I'd rate it about a 43 out of 69 experience. But Lightning McWing was low-key starving, as I haven't fed him since his birth 20 days ago, so I decided it was probably time to make a feeding trough for my family of 43. I then went to the store to buy some milk, and this time, I actually did come back. Dinner time. What are you looking at? I didn't really have any more room inside my base, but I needed to make a greenhouse for some crops because some SCP eat veggie cakes and some eat beer for some reason. So I set up a spiral staircase over the kitchen, which really opened up the place. Knocked down the ceiling and set up 4 crop plots and a beer barrel for a snallygaster on the roof of my apocalyptic house. It's not the best, but I limited myself to this tiny little base, so yeah, I'm working with what I have, okay? But we're not done yet, because I wanted to actually make a rooftop greenhouse. I just needed some crystal. So I took Frank back to the desert where a blood moon began. My timing is immaculate as always. It was super sketchy with the entire population of desert heathens wanting to assassinate Frank, but we made it to the crystal cave in one piece. And on the way out, well, I probably shouldn't be alive right now, but somehow that alpha fire wyvern didn't see me. And on day 53, I made it home, and I constructed the most cliche, basic looking greenhouse in all of Pangea. Oh, that actually doesn't look bad. It even had the perfect view to spy on my mortal enemy, SCP-0, the Scarlet King. I'm gonna harvest your body, spoil it in my meat spoiler, and use it to craft bedtime stories. So I used Trek Tyson to farm some seeds, and commanded my entire family to drop a load to bribe Reese's Feces for fertilizer. But then, I noticed, wait, I can ride this guy? And then, I did this. This man has a 400-inch vertical, which is insanely impressive and all, but I was like 99% sure he was a shoulder pet. What? So he just shrinks? Yeah, apparently he's a shoulder pet when he wants to be, but then other times he jumps over walls like Mario. Good times. Planted each crop with 2 fertilizer and gave them each 2 paparazzi branded water bottles. The greenhouse business was booming. And I also checked the engram inside Carl's brain for crafting a member of the Dark Bloodthirhood. The recipe calls for 1 to 2,000 hateful flesh, but I currently only have about 500. I need to skin more haters, but I can do that later, because right now it was time to tame one
one of the stronger SCPs to breed an apocalyptic family, for boss fight purposes of course. And there were two that came to mind. First of all, the big Ferox looking guy. Oh look, Harambe's learning about face scan technology. Good for you, man. And the other candidate is the demonic Sarko. So on day 54, I began the search. And over where the volcano meets the snow, I found it, the Sarko of Doom. 530k torpor? I have 3 of the 500 times Trank Darts. And first of all, I might miss, but second of all, is that even gonna be enough? What? I did not miss that. But in the end, it didn't even matter. Because even with the long neck and 500 times bedtime stories, I still needed 5 of these things. So I headed back, queued up some more narcotics, went AFK. Why does my shadow look like I'm Steve from Minecraft? And I spent the rest of the day tending to my crops and doing that thing where, you know, you get distracted talking to your friends in Discord and then you just start parkouring around your base. So on day 55, I had 5,000 entire buckets full of horse tranquilizer, which I used to lace my pen and began ghostwriting 10 of the highest potency bedtime stories on the planet. Nobody's safe from a good night's sleep. When I arrived, he still had a little bit of torpor from being outside render distance, and since he was distracted taking interviews from the paparazzi, it was pretty easy to hit the shots. And once he was close, I swapped to the yellow 100 times sleep darts, and 2 shots of the shoulder blade later, his insomnia has been cured. But then this happened. No, dude, stop! There's always that one guy. I was gonna execute this miscreant on the spot for sabotaging my taming effectiveness, but then I decided, you know what? I'm gonna tame you, and you're gonna wish I didn't. And it took a while, and when he finished, my game froze for like 5 seconds. Okay, we're good. But Darth Gator was now the first Florida man in the family, 44 out of 69. But there was a bloody moon out tonight, so I put him inside a pod for now. Because Degenerate here, yes, that's his name, took another 15 minutes. And, well, I kind of accidentally left him on 100 health, and then, well... Oh no, I cannot believe this has happened. I was actually gonna drown the dude, but that works, I guess. Anyways, Darth Gator was unleveled, and his baseline bite did almost 500 damage. He also has this little spin thing, a jump, a roar, and that's all pretty dandy, but I couldn't figure out how to do the big explosion thing that the wild ones do. I tried pressing every button on my controller, and some that weren't on my controller.
What do you mean by that?
But XQ, C, and Shift XQ and C were all just variants of the basic attack. Did I just say XQC? The only thing I haven't tried yet is feeding him some Taco Bell. That'll make him explode. But on a side note, this dude's an Olympic swimmer in the water, and that will come in handy. Anyways, I finally went to level the dude up when I noticed, yo, dude, I just got scammed. His health was 400k when he was wild, and now it is 47k. Something ain't adding up. His health was nerfed by 90%, just like it was with Leonardo da Vinci. And that was super disappointing, but after getting him to 100k and pumping the rest into melee, he's still gonna be really solid. I also tried using Control and Control Shift with each attack button, which did his little tail whip thing, but I still don't know how to spontaneously combust. I spent the rest of day 57 searching for a high-level SCP-4715. I found a few of them here and there, but they were all worthless. Until I reached the canyon, where I found a level 105. This man's stats were still way lower than Darth Gator's, and 105 isn't the best, but I decided to go for it. But as I loaded a lullaby into my sleep tracker, the dude farted. And this wasn't just your everyday ordinary fart. In fact, it stunk so bad that even the pteranodons, who have sworn to pacifism, broke their vows and began to attack that man. Like, literally everything within a mile's radius wanted that stinker dead. But I took advantage of the opportunity and used it to send his consciousness to the underworld. The taming effectiveness definitely took a hit, but after exterminating some heathens, Old Spice was tamed. 45 out of 69. And then he farted again. McGriffin almost became a Happy Meal right there. But Old Spice's health was nerfed down to 17k. So I think Darth Gator is definitely going to be the head of our new breeding department. He didn't do bad in that fight or anything, but yeah, Darth Gator's definitely better. I actually prefer Leonardo da Vinci over Darth Gator, but he's not breedable and we do need an arm. So after I accidentally went skydiving without a parachute and then inadvertently caused World War Z, oh my! I don't know why I can't figure out how to make him do that on purpose, but that poison attack is insane. Anyways, Darth Gator is a male, so I needed to find him a Florida girl to co-manage the breeding department of my bedtime company. And once we find one, this man right here is the first target. The first place that I looked to find a Florida girl was on the islands by the swamp, and sure enough, I found one. But he was actually a Florida man, and that most certainly will not do. So after spectating as some banana connoisseurs made their mark on the world, and watching a horse walk on water while running away from a mutated space whale, I found the girl of Darth Vader's dreams. She was just as ugly as he is, so I launched a bedtime story into her kidney, did that 2 more times, but then I got targeted by a summoner. Leave me alone! I tried to run, I really did, but these sociopaths were determined to deep fry McGriffin. Go away! My stamina was getting dangerously low, but luckily, I did make it outside their radar. And when I returned to Darth Gator's future lover, I used some yellow darts to finish the job. And now she was 1 drink away, but then she started running.
Why are you running?
Or swimming, I guess. Wait, that's not a female? I'm not really sure how this happened, but I think Darth Gator just came out the closet. But the other Gator over here was a male as well. And to be honest, I was questioning my sanity because I could have sworn that that was a female like 30 seconds ago. But I just wasted a ton of trank darts. And the swamp is covered with Instagram models putting filters all over my screen. But I did realize after seeing that giant gas bags looking guy failing at swimming over here that I need to make sure that I have the eggs to make enormous kibble by day 100. That could take a really long time if I'm not prepared. So I left the swamp, found McGriffin's level 130 brother-in-law, improved his sleep, you're welcome, and while he was digesting his midnight snack, I checked the recipe for extraordinary kibble. It's a pretty limited recipe, but I could steal a bunch of wyvern eggs, or I could breed a bunch of UDs and cook up their offspring. But the issue is, each enormous kibble takes 15 extraordinary kibble. I'm gonna need like 100 eggs, bro. Anyways, the backup Griffin was gonna take a while, so in the meantime, I continued looking for a female Darth Gator. The Scarlet King was looking intimidating as ever, and the Tasmanian was looking very devilish as well. But anyways, it was now day 58, and before the sun could even rise, my game crashed. Fatal error. Okay, so I had to do a dino wipe to stop the game from crashing, but it's still on 30 times spawn rates. Unfortunately though, my backup Griffin is now gone. But over in the swamp, some rotten zombies and parasites began to respawn. And they continued to respawn way too much. I also started beefing with the big guy. I didn't really mean to, but he was a pretty low level. And it was going pretty well until he started encasing me inside of these giant rocks so I literally couldn't move. I got 40 levels from that though. Anyways, I don't know why it was so difficult to find Darth Gator a wife, because he's a pretty stand-up guy. But during my search, I found this SCP-4778 in the water. Never mind. And I also found a rotten Bananazilla, who was spoiled by Dwayne the Rudolph Johnson. No way. Are you guys seeing this? Bananazilla is made from banana chunks, but his favorite food is banana chunks. That man's a cannibal. I must have learned something that they didn't want me to know though, because then my game crashed. So I no longer have the banana chunks, but I know where to get them. Anyways, I finally found a female from Florida. So I pumped some NyQuil into her veins, summoned Darth Gator to clear the area. Thanks, buddy. And set them up in an arranged marriage. Okay,
I can finally go home. I spent the night crafting some jars to bottle my perfectly fermented beer, and then put some sap in it because that unfilters it apparently. I mean, I guess pretty much anything you put in it would unfilter it, right? And on day 59, before breeding the gators, I had a couple of things that I wanted to take care of. Step 1 was to use Leonardo da Vinci to murder a banana man, steal his lungs, and chop his banana body into chunks. Just another Tuesday. There was also another new water SCP, but I couldn't tame him because he was beefing with Dark Gator's uncle, and he was most certainly going to lose. Anyway, there was a level 150 banana boy over by the swamp, and it says these guys are a passive tame, but bro is doing 300 to 500 damage to make Griffin, so like, no? I pulled up the Steam page, and well, SCP must be damaged while roaring to stun, then torporable. When it gets up, we'll do a small roar, then a big roar, and when a small roar starts, you must damage and stun again, and then repeat. Whoever designed this is doing way too much. But I was about to try and stun that man when this happened. A snake the size of California ruined everything. So instead, I headed back into the canyon, launched a bedtime story into the eye socket of a snallygaster, and dumped an entire pint of unfiltered beer down his trachea. 46 out of 69. I was gonna tame some Uties to breed and cook their offspring into enormous kibble, and I thought I had found one, but it was actually something else. Partridge Creek Beast. For some reason, he took forever to eat his lunch, but the Utie from Timu marked SCP 47 out of 69. And on day 60, I found a 145 male Utie. That actually could be pretty useful for the boss fights as well as the eggs for the kibble. But while he was consuming his mutton involuntarily, I flew around the perimeter of the snow because on Ragnarok, if you go any deeper, the temperature drops to -500 for absolutely no reason. But long story short, I found a level 20 female, incapacitated her, gaslit her into being my indentured friend, and the 145 Utie was done as well. I also found another banana man inside the canyon, but there's no way that I'm doing that 5-step taming process when there's 37 species of degenerate licking their lips down there. So I headed back to base. Made a Utie settle, and after admiring how much smaller the Utie from Timu is compared to the real name brand Utie, day 61 had begun. I had so much left to do that I was kind of worried about actually finishing it all before day 100. There's about 10 creatures that are going to be pretty difficult, so before I started breeding, I decided to try and finally get some potassium. There was another banana man on the desert island, but he was beefing with a cyborg, so I dismantled his mainframe, and by the way, I figured out how to do the explosion thing. You press O for some reason. But anyways, after Darth Gator emancipated Doug from the tyranny of his pathetic existence, Bananazilla was gone. How is that even possible, bro? Luckily, there was another banana tree growing on the island, and I waited on him to roar. And while he did, I damaged him just like the wiki said to, but I don't believe that he is stunned. In fact, I did this several times, and not once did it seem to faze the man. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing right here. So instead, I launched a trank dart into his banana peel, and I tried to see if he could just be a knockout tame. But no, he's definitely passive. But over on the next island, I found a cardboard box from Amazon that infinitely spawned these little mini Wyvern SCPs. It says they're tameable, but according to the wiki, you actually have to build this contraption yourself. So after playing Ring Around the Rosie with a Bananazilla, this man does insane damage, but I did manage to catch him roaring long enough to see this test. SCP-2761 does not want to be tamed right now. You don't say. There was one thing left that I could try, damaging him myself instead of with a tame. So I headed back, stole the flesh of a hater, grabbed my pump shotty, and on day 62, I gave it one more shot, literally. I tried damaging him during different parts of both roars, but nothing was happening. I wasn't giving up though. This man is gonna join or die. That moment when someone would rather die than be your friend, that's tough, man. So at the time, since I couldn't figure it out, I decided to just say that I'm stupid and will count the kill as SCP-48 out of 69. But I actually will try again later, so don't worry. And after reviewing my list, there actually were a few more easy tames left before I was down to the final 10 difficult ones. But first, it was time to order an empty cardboard box off Amazon. The Amazon package marked SCP-49 out of 69. I can wear him on my head. And when he summons the minifigure battalion, I can have a Wyvern shoulder pet. That's actually like the coolest shoulder pet that I've seen. But they despawn after 90 seconds, so yeah.
I'm actually 50 hateful flesh away from the SCP-610 craft, and at this point, it was time for Dark Gator and his arranged marriage wife, that I suspect he probably wishes was a husband, to prepare for war. So after making a cooking pot for later, a couple air conditioners, and igniting some gasoline in my kitchen, it was time for a breeding montage. Except this music that you're hearing right now, I know it doesn't sound like a breeding montage, and that's because, well, this happened. Oh no, what? Okay, so, that happened. We just experienced heavy war casualties, including McGriffin himself, and Hawktua. God rest her hawk soul. I don't really know what else is missing, so it's probably not important. Anyways, it was time to breed the Darth Gators. The air conditioners weren't powered because that fake outlet from earlier was closer than the real one, so I made a new one, which fixed the right unit. I destroyed the left one with my bare hands, built a new one, got stuck on air and rescued by James Charles. I was also gonna start breeding Yudi eggs during that gator grind, but then I realized, wait, where's the male Yudi? I didn't see him down on the ground, so I checked my tribe log, and in a sea of deceased tiny wyverns from an Amazon box, Yudi was killed by SCP-3700, no! So remember that time when I said that nothing important died? Yeah, I lied. So on day 64, I found myself back in the snow. It would be awesome to tame one of those, whatever those things are, but I'm all out of 500 times bedtime stories, and McGriffin is in the afterlife. And you actually cannot shoot from the back of a wyvern. I can't shoot my trank darts. So I continued searching for a Yudi. I found a level 170 male Partridge Creek beast, but he was in the super cold murder snow, and the literal Scarlet King is about 20 foot away. I also don't even know if they lay Yudi eggs, so I continued my search. And then I contracted frostbite, and then my game crashed. And when I loaded back in, Carl broke his kneecaps. Good times. All of my flyers were gone, and I didn't know what to do. All of them except for one. This dude is so slow, bro. What are you looking at? Go take a shower. The flight took 84 years. But then I realized, wait, he can glide? I was flying like half the speed this entire time. Anyways, I got my stuff back, and apparently I can also shoot from the back of this guy too. I might have judged this little alcoholic a little too harsh. What's wrong, buddy? You wanted an exclusive interview, here it is. Anyways, I wasted enough time today, so when I saw a level 85 Yudi, I used my proprietary recipe to improve his sleep quality, exterminated his mortal enemies, lodged some of his uncooked enemies in between his vocal cords, and waited over here, because it be cold. It took about 15 minutes, but on day 65, after defending my life from the undead mafia, the Yudi was tamed, and it was now finally time. Almost time for Darth Gator to run the breeding department. He's gonna have to work overtime, but don't worry, I was paying him double. 2 times 0 is still 0. So I did wait on them to become full-grown Florida men to confirm, but apparently these are just regular Sarcos.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
I did get a bunch of Yudi eggs from that though, and Harambe is holding on to them for me. But in terms of Darth Gators, I'm gonna need to tame some more. And for that, I need to ghostwrite some more bedtime stories. What is going on? now day 69, and I had 500 times tranks with a ton of narco berries on standby. But in terms of spoiled meat, we have no spoiled meat. And outside, the paparazzi were still spawning on my front lawn, but now that I have everything on passive and the little Wyvern dudes deal with it, I don't really have to worry too much. Also, Trike Tyson can sit down. Good boy. But after that hater killing spree in the grasslands earlier, I had almost 2,000 flesh of my haters. I also had the element and the prime meat, but if I wanted something other than the default hater skin, I needed some more flesh. So I took Lightning McQueen on a paid vacation, summoned Darth Gator, and skinned a family of Reapers that also happened to be haters. There were a few options for the SCP-610, including a Shadow Mane, a Reaper, a giant arachnid, and the Titan variant. But I decided to go with this Dominion thing that took 2,000 of the skin from my haters. The SCP-610 marks Tam number 50 out of 69, and he was basically just a Rex, but with all of his levels into hatred. So after staring at Carl with various shoulder pats, because I was trying to decide on a thumbnail for this video, I was trying to come up with a plan for these more difficult tames. I'm pretty sure that the small tameable version of the Rock cosplaying as a reindeer eats an item that I get from killing the big one. Kind of like the banana chunks from the yellow fella. Yeah, whoever made this mod is into cannibalism. I also really needed to figure out how to tame Godzilla, and that one scares me. But for now, I headed back and prepared some veggie cakes for one of the smaller tames. Step 1 was harvest my crops, and step 2 was to farm some sap during the apocalypse. And as the clock struck 12, I headed over to Greenop. This was the exact location where I executed my masterfully planned heist of stealing a bee's livelihood. Somebody help! Well, that went well. Anyways, back at base, I got all of the ingredients together, crafted some energy drinks, and turned on the Bunsen burner. Ow! I didn't need a lot of veggie cakes, just a couple. And it took a while, but past the volcano, through the herd of Leonardo da Vinci's, and over on the hillside, I fed a sheep bro some cake. He's basically useless, but the dude can jump higher than Neil Armstrong. 51 out of 69. And it's time to leave. I spent the rest of day 70 farming meat, and about halfway through day 71, I had a somewhat significant supply of raw degenerate. Well, that's concerning, but that was only a little preview of how today was going to turn out, because once I arrived at home, there was a banana on my doorstep. I tried to stun him like the week he told me to, but ended up eating the dude instead. And while I was at my base crafting a new meat spoiler, something terrible happened. Oh no! I was over encumbered, so I dropped everything into the fabricator, including Darth Gator, by accident. So when I made it over, the only tame I had on me was Leonardo da Vinci. Luckily, Dwayne the Rudolph Johnson here was only level 5, but he still had 200k health. And despite Leonardo using his pinchy on that man, bro was absolutely locked in and would not stop assaulting my base. In hindsight, I probably should have just whistled neutral or even passive flee, to be honest, but instead I went back for Darth Gator and tried to take him down before anything bad could happen. The Rock, who just so happened to be cosplaying as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, marked SCP number 52 out of 69. And two things. First of all, I wanted to fight a level 100 or higher because this was way too easy. And second of all, he gave me some Devourer's Feast, which is used to tame the small, tameable variant, Mr. Johnson. And I know I said two things, but a third thing, like 80% of my friend group just got murdered by a rock, and half of the ones that are still alive are fighting for their life in the wilderness right now. I'm gonna miss that stench. Promise me you'll take a shower in heaven, or wherever unclean ones go. On day 71, I placed the meat spoiler and made some spark powder to run it. It was gonna take longer than I had hoped, so I decided to make a few more to speed up the process. And while that was cooking, or reverse cooking I guess, I took Mr. Centipede from Ohio out to the ocean to find the last couple water dwellers. Well, that's interesting. Over by the desert islands, I found an SCP-4778. That man seemed to be related to Reese's Feces, so I took one for the team, scooped it up with my bare hands, and placed it onto the taste buds of a whale. He was a passive tam, and while I was waiting on him to get hungry again, I ordered some dessert from a local barbecue joint, and then I waited, and I waited, and I waited some more. But this man would not eat my feces. Okay, so that sounded kind of weird, but actually that's like exactly what's happening. It took over 30 minutes to get hungry again. But then, 30 minutes later, this happened. No! My tame was ruined
by an aquatic degenerate. And then I had to sit here and watch this man beef with Ray and his extended family. But luckily, thanks to the Phiomia poop being very large, it only took one this time. Oh, thank you. I was gonna name this man Kim Jong-dung, but I low-key forgot because it's been 40 minutes and I named him Iron Stomach instead because, you know, he can go weeks without food and he can also eat that. 53 out of 69. Anyways, this dude was okay, but he's super slow. So I put him inside a Pokeball, said hello to a fellow Ohio resident. Hey, how's it going, dude? I got super lucky and found the other water creature nearby, the SCP-1128. But I completely forgot that you can't shoot long neck rifles underwater, and this man was low-key destroying me. Ow, bro, calm down. But eventually, I managed to hit a shot on land and finish him off using Darth Gator to keep me afloat. But as soon as that man's head hit the pillow, the Mafia showed up. I tried to stop them, but no matter what I did, either Darth Gator or a cult of water-coated heathens was gonna eat this man. And it took a while, but at the end of day 73, I found another. It was only level 20, but that meant he would only take one mutton. And Mutant here marks SCP number 54 out of 69. He was actually really cool. Probably my favorite water creature in this mod, but unfortunately for him, I absolutely despise, deplore, and detest anything that lives in the ocean. So he's going in the pod. I ended off the day by 1v1ing Darth Gator's step-cousin. And on day 74, I made it home. The meat spoilers were putting in some overtime work, and now that the meat was disgusting, I queued up a world record number of bedtime stories. Wow, that made me an entire 5 trank darts. But over in my backyard, I found Old Spice getting chewed up by a mortal. I don't know how I didn't realize he was gone, but anyways, I had 12 of the most potent lullabies on the planet. And I was pretty excited to try this one out, because it was time to tame this spaceman. But nearby, there was also a level 20 of the smaller tameable version of Dwayne the Rudolph Johnson. You know, that dude that ruined my entire family back on day 71. These guys eat the remains of their superiors like a power-hungry cannibal. So I put some Devourer's Feast into my hotbar, watched as this man harnessed the power of lightning, poison, and then fire to execute a caveman. But he seemed chill enough, so I offered him a meal. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why he wants to devour me, but the second attempt went about the same. Okay. According to the wiki, these guys are docile yet territorial, and I needed some of the SCP repellent, which requires the skin of my haters. And I needed some ghillie armor. Also, I completely forgot that I can't shoot the space whale from Lightning McQueen's back, so I needed to head back to base anyway. And back at base, on day 75, the narcotics were done cooked, so I queued up 5 more 50 times and 6 more 500 times trank darts. Used the rotten flesh of the paparazzi to make some ghillie so a rock can't see me. Used some pelt, carrots, lemons, and hardcore drugs to concoct 6 entire buckets of this gross-looking sludge to repel degenerates. And at this point, I was all out of narco berries, but I think I have enough tranks to finish out this challenge. Well, at least the taming part, but fighting the Scarlet King and the Tasmanian Devil, that's super scary, and I have no idea how that's gonna play out. Anyways, I settled up an alcoholic and headed back to the canyon, where the Rock was still cosplaying as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Bro, give it up already. So I decided to eat some sludge to repel him, disguise myself as grass, and consume the flesh of my haters for good luck. This man was gonna eat his lunch, and he was gonna like it. But when I snuck over, dude, can you stop moving? There was no option to feed. I was super scared that if I stood up, he would summon an electric chair and decapitate me, but I just went for it, and it worked. Dwayne the Rudolph Johnson marks SCP number 55 out of 69. And his name is too long to be socially acceptable in the Cretaceous period, apparently. So it looks like our new friend is now Dwayne the Rudolph Johns. His abilities are a bit slow, but highly effective. It's actually kind of insane for a level 20, and I might get a better one later for the boss fight. But right now, I had a whale in my sights. What? So apparently the whale takes way more torpor per shot than Darth Gator. They must have different multipliers or something, which is kind of odd, but I'm not complaining. I was complaining, however, about this man's hitbox. I tried to open his inventory from his back, his side, directly inside his kidney, staring down his esophagus, but nothing was working. I was doing this for like 10 minutes, until I realized, wait, it's just floating beneath him? Bro. So I stuck some mutton into his black hole of a stomach, and I was trying to get back to my alcoholic, but the
the entire pocket edition of the Wyvern Mafia was trying to extort my soul from my body. Alcoholic, come here, bro. I was super low health, and I just had to go for it. I got deleted. Seriously? So Lightning McQueen is now getting some more playing time. The whale was gonna take a while, but after surviving the apocalypse, I finally tamed a spaceman. 56 out of 69. Neil Armstrong was incredibly slow, but he had a bite, a tail whip, which stunned Harambe here. Oh yeah, and he can, you know, do this. I want some more of these guys for sure. The stats aren't great, especially the health, but I can fix them. So I was making my SCP list and checking it twice when I noticed that there were 3 cryptids left that seemed pretty easy to tame. The first of which was the Yeti. And I've probably seen one of these dudes before, but I thought it was like a Gigantopithecus or something. But this guy here was level 180. So I loaded a 50 times sleep pill into my bedtime gun, launched it directly into his spleen, and stuffed his unconscious body with mutton. 20 minutes later, Harambe, but abominable, marked SCP-57 out of 69. This man should play for the Dodgers. The rest of day 76 was spent searching for cryptids. But on day 77, I found a level 27 SCP-137. They call this man the Statue. I'm not really sure why, but he definitely runs faster than most statues I've met. Anyways, I decided to give this another shot, since I didn't have Darth Vader last time. The statue was super tanky, and my eyes just couldn't help but blink. But luckily, Darth Vader has enough health to tank this man's statue-like advances, and he was completely unfazed when the statue snapped his neck. Wait, neck snap? Darth Vader, are you good? That sounds painful. The fight lasted so long, and at one point his fumes were suffocating Darth Vader, but eventually the statue became a pebble. And I unlocked an engram to craft a tamed one. Oh, okay. This would require 300 calcified meat, but other than that, I do have the resources. Anyways, I continued searching for cryptids, and at the end of day 76, I found one. What are they feeding them in SeaWorld? The orca whale with giant biceps was down, and I spent the night partying with the paparazzi. But on day 78, the bodybuilder from SeaWorld marked tame 58 out of 69. I think that's the first one I've seen this entire time for some reason, and I've only seen a couple Mothmen, probably because I never make time in my day to visit the Redwoods. But there was a level 185 manly moth here as well. And this time, I didn't make the mistake of trying to knock him out. I don't know what it is about passive tames in these mods, but after the very first feeding, these dudes will literally sit here for 30 minutes before they get hungry again for the second piece of berry. Anyways, I had to banish an Instagram model from life to remove that filter from my screen, but I low-key lost the moth guy, and I couldn't find him for 10 minutes. Oh, there he is. Duolingo marked tame 59 out of 69. And at this point, I only had 10 left to go. In fact, there was only 1 cryptid left, the Fire Spitter from Nigeria. So after taking a midnight flight on Lightning McAirlines, we made it home. And I didn't know this before, but apparently this SCP sheep guy makes wyvern milk in his inventory. I'm not gonna question that, but it's actually pretty cool. Anyways, I made a saddle for the bodybuilder from SeaWorld and Duolingo, and Mr. Orca Bodybuilder here, I'm not gonna lie, I wish I tamed him earlier because he looks so cool, but at this point in the run, he was a bit power crept. The basic attack was okay, and he had this jump grab ability where you can throw dudes across the map. Like, imagine you're at SeaWorld, right? You're just chilling there in the seats, and the orca whale jumps out of the water, his biceps are massive, and he just kidnaps your little brother that's sitting next to you. That would certainly be memorable. But Duolingo, on the other wing, he isn't too versed in hand-to-hand combat. That's probably because he doesn't have hands, but this man is insanely fast, and he can glide to be even faster. And I know we shouldn't talk bad about the dead, but he kind of puts McGriffin to shame. You can even shoot off the dude's back, so yeah, there's no reason for this not to be my new everyday flyer now. And if I ever feel the sudden urge to gas some pedestrians, you know, as one will do, he can also do that for some reason. Anyways, back over in my base. Whoa, what just happened? I wanted to craft the SCP-173 statue guy, and I had everything I needed except for stone and calcified meat. So I took Rick Roll, arrived at the rock, and, well, this definitely could have went better. Jeff, bro, where do you think you're going? That was weird enough, but then this happened. The miscreants were too powerful for my Rick Roll, so I tried to hop on Lightning McWing, but I became infected with undead. And that wasn't even the worst part of it, because after eviscerating the locals, I dismounted while the lightning was McWinging. I saw this loot crate next to Jabba the Hutt. It just had medical supplies though. Anyways, after getting my stuff back, rescuing Jeff from his... I don't know what he's doing, but I rescued him and now he's in a Pokeball. And loading the stone into my smithy, nightfall approached. Is that man inside my greenhouse? Somehow, the paparazzi have initiated a home invasion, and this man was trying to get an exclusive interview with Reese's Feces. So I quick-scoped a news reporter right inside my home garden, and I waited out the rest of the night, listening to the peaceful sounds of Mortal Kombat outside. So on day 80, after Duolingo dove multilingually into my game crashing, I needed to farm some prime meat to calcify for the SCP-173 statue. So I summoned a spaceman, which crashed my game again, and long story short, my space whale ate some large gentlemen, and I infused 300 pieces of meat with stone. I have to wait on that to happen 300 times, so I went AFK. And yeah, day 80 was already coming to an end. It's really annoying to play the game while I'm crafting. Like, if you've ever tried to do that, it's the worst. But I have no choice. The time is ticking. And this would waste the entire day 81. So I set out, but I just have to keep in mind that I can't sprint and my weight is almost full. Anyways, on day 81, my goal was to tame Cthulhu, the last cryptid on the list, a Nigerian fire spitter, and I believe that the statue and those two dudes that I was just talking about are the last 3 easy tams on the list. Everything else is, questionable. Anyways, I was looking for Cthulhu because I heard about his secret sweet tooth and I wanted to give him some honey. But over by the volcano, I found one of the best Rudolph cosplayers in the world. This man's MMR was off the charts. I really wanted to tame this guy for the boss fight, but for some reason I forgot my ghillie suit at home. And how else am I supposed to blend in with the black volcano? But Duolingo is so fast that it's honestly no big deal. And when I landed for stamina, bro did an unassisted Nordic hamstring curl. That was impressive. Anyways, back at my mountain home, there was another Dwayne the Rudolph Johnson. 112 MMR. Man's peak cosplayer. So I grabbed my ghillie suit. Why is there a Yeti here? Disguised myself as grass so I can blend in with the sand and rocks of the mountain. Don't question it. Sprayed myself with some hardcore drugs, and I paused the calcified meat craft. It's really hard to actually find the hitbox for feeding this man, but it could just be because Carl was 4 foot tall. Anyways, he was over 90% tamed from one bite of cannibalism. But the last 10%, oh, that final 10%. It's been a running theme in this mod that the passive tame takes like 3 light years to become hungry again, but this man took 4. At least I was able to calcify some meat while I was waiting, but I sat here for the entire rest of the day, and I continued sitting here for the entire day 82, and at this point, all 300 meat was calcified. It's been like an hour. I even had time to build an entire statue in my bedroom. And exactly 1 hour after his last bite of cannibalism, at the end of day 82, he came back for seconds. And the off-brand Rockwell here was kind of insane. He's a bit too tall to actually hit the zombies, but he doesn't even need to. The dude can just walk and casually commit mass genocide. I'm not sure if I can say that word on YouTube. His base health is 45k, so he's right in line with Darth Gator and will be great for the boss fights. But I'm not taming any more of those guys because that took way too long. Anyways, it was time to summon Mr. Statue. He marks SCP 60 out of 69. And this man still forcibly shuts my eyeballs when he's tamed, so I probably won't use him. Never mind. What I meant to say is, despite him making me blink, this rock fella is definitely gonna get used. So I named him Blink of Death, summoned him outside my gate, broke Usain Bolt's world record of fastest statue man, and assaulted a heathen. Oh my, this man's insane! It was doing over 1,000 damage per hit, unleveled. But not everything is as it seems, because he has no other attacks, and this one has like a 5-second cooldown. So Darth Gator is actually doing significantly higher DPS, even with less damage per hit. Either way though, he's definitely going to be a great addition to our boss fight squadron. Anyways, I wasted enough time because of Mr. Off-Brand Rockwell, so I headed back across the desert, over the mountain, through the giant trees of the redwoods, past some degenerates in the highlands, and over on the beach, where I found a beautiful specimen. And for once, the dude wasn't busy eviscerating hoodlums, so I placed some honey into my hotbar and shoved it into his nasal cavity. Oh no, I just realized this is another passive tame. At this point, point, I was already expecting this to take 30 minutes. One eternity later. It was now day 84, and he was ready to break his fast with some breakfast. So I laced some honey in between his tentacles, and Cthulhu marks SCP-61 out of 69. He's really not great, and I probably would be much more impressed if I tamed him earlier. I mean, the dude's got wings and he can't even fly. Imagine being that useless.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
Wait, I just realized his face is literally a Tuso, and Carl's just riding on top. What a legend. There were only 8 SCP left at this point, and Godzilla was gonna get tamed pretty soon. But first, I stopped by Viking Bay. I was looking for a Nigerian fire spitter, but all I found here was a horseman walking on water. Well, where did he get? Did that man just go to Hogwarts? Anyways, I found one over in the jungle, but yeah, they aren't tameable. So I used Duolingo to extinguish his flames. I probably shouldn't have done that. According to the wiki, they're a passive tame, but you can only tame the baby ones, which also are supposed to spawn in the wild. And it took a while, but at the start of day 85, I still didn't find one. I don't think I've even seen a baby one at all, to be honest. And the Scarlet King randomly started threatening my life. There are plenty of adults capable of spitting flames around here, but the entire day 85 was wasted. But as I was checking the desert, I found a level 10 Moose SCP guy. I've been waiting on a low level, so it would only take one of my flesh, and this is it. So I headed back to base to tell Moosebait of his time to shine, or time to die, however you want to look at it. But I didn't see him in my smithy, and then I got stuck inside my front door. Come on. But I did find these OG gentlemen. But I couldn't find Moosebait. And spoiler alert, he was actually just chilling in the fabricator the entire time, and I'm an idiot. So after setting out to tame a new Moosebait, and watching him get brutally murdered by a robot, I came across an SCP-3602. What? I thought that was a Mesopithecus. These guys look exactly like Mesopithecus. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same model. So I probably have seen one and not noticed yet. But anyways, they eat banana chunks. So I headed home, grabbed some chunks of a banana man, found my moose in the fabricator. Were you here this entire time? And fed a chunk of a bananazilla to this imposter. He marked SCP-62 out of 69. And apparently, you can give this man rocks, spears, bolas, or even darts to throw at his enemies. That's a pretty big upgrade from the normal Mesopithecus who just fling their poop. Anyways, I found the Moose Man, so I landed nearby, stabbed Carl's forearm with a syringe that I found in a back alley to craft some Carl flesh, watched Duolingo do another Nordic hamstring curl, and summoned some moose bait. This man only did like 50 damage a hit, but I forced him to remain on passive and take it like a man. And once he ate his SCP, it was time. What? Why? For some reason, he didn't want to be tamed. And also, I seemed to be stuck. So I yeeted Imposter as a distraction, and after getting Hulk smashed, I got stuck again. Bro. Imposter got deleted. And this game is perfectly stable with 0 bugs, of course. Oh my. Anyways, I won't make you watch this again. It was now day 87, and I had some new fresh meat for Mr. Moose. I was thinking that the problem was me maybe having to feed the dude immediately after the kill instead of waiting a couple seconds. So I tried again, and I was right there, bro. But he didn't eat, and I got stuck. No! Good times. I think I might be stupid, but why won't he eat Carl's flesh? So I decided to try that again later and shift my focus to taming the King of ARK, Godzilla himself. This man eats prime fish meat that's gone through a radiation zone, and he also has 182 million torpor, because why not? This is by far the most complicated tame on this list, but step 1 was to build an obelisk. This thing looks awesome. Half of the recipes in here are to spawn a wild one, but I don't need to worry about that because they're already everywhere. I just needed to make some micro nukes and this bigger gun, which seems like it was named by a toddler, to knock him out. So on day 88, with only 12 days remaining, I evaluated my list to come up with a plan. The remaining tames are the Moose Man, the Nigerian Fire Spitter, Godzilla, and the giant gas bags lobster man that eats enormous kibble, and of course, the 2 bosses, the Tasmanian Devil and the Scarlet King. So I decided to go ahead and cook up as much enormous kibble as possible, and to make the extraordinary kibble for it, I needed Lazarus chowder. And to make Lazarus chowder,
I needed cooked meat. I don't even have a campfire because I've been eating a strict granola bar diet since day 15. But after buying a state-of-the-art George Foreman grill and having no space in my entire house to place it, I guess I could always put it up here. I barbecued some meat, liquefied it in a chowder, of the Lazarus variety of course, and I made some extraordinary kibble at the same time. Peak multitasking, which by the way is super annoying to keep up with the water if you don't build irrigation, but I'm the kind of person that is too lazy to do something that's literally easier. Why am I like this? But approximately 30 minutes later, I had 18 extraordinary kibble. My SCP family is busy eviscerating news reporters per usual, but over in my Harambe storage box, I only had 9 Yudi eggs left. Both of the U-Tyrannus died in the war of day 71, so I actually don't have a way of getting any more eggs. And I need 4 to 5 enormous kibble for the SCP-169, and each enormous kibble takes 15 eggs. It only makes 1? Okay, so I need about 35 more eggs if I want 4 kibble, which by the way only tames me at level 5, and for Godzilla ARK on the other hand, I need ammo for the micro nuke, and that requires uranium ingots, which require a uranium forge, which requires uranium dust, which requires science experience. Basically, I need a whole lot of stuff, and since I don't have Udis, I need a whole lot of Wyvern eggs as well. So I took Duolingo to the Wyvern residence. Why are you here? The Alpha Wyvern gave me a new skin for Carl's gloves, which got broken about 20 seconds later because I couldn't mount Darth Vader. But anyways, the best way of getting Wyvern eggs is to steal one of their children to make them all want to decapitate you, and then you just open your mouth and get a free Wyvern buffet. So that's not exactly supposed to happen. You're supposed to bring a gas mask or a scuba tank so that doesn't happen. In the regular vanilla ARK, you can just do this exact same thing with the Giga, and it works just as well. And now that the Wyverns are all in the grave, you are now living rent-free to just kidnap all their unborn Wyvern children to cook up into kibble, to feed my overweight co-worker. And just like that, I had 11 Wyvern eggs. Also, something that I used to do back in the day, if you leave one Wyvern alive in that cove, like a 190 or one with like really cool colors or something, when you come back, there will be multiple eggs from that one Wyvern. Anyways, I had some really solid Wyverns, including 2 165 fires, a 180, a 175 lightning. I almost feel kind of bad for cooking them, but I would still need about 25 more. And that wasn't even the hard part, because the Godzilla ARK resources, well, they also include me farming artifacts. So to spare you from death via boredom, here's a quick recap. So it was now day 94, and the only other ingredient that I needed was stable aether, and for that I needed some G cells. And I didn't actually know what those are, but from the Kaiju mod, I could infer that I needed to kill a Godzilla. But on the other side of things, I had 43 extraordinary kibble and no Mayho berries for some reason, so I forced Trek Tyson to work for minimum wage. Crafted 2 humongous kibble, and I just needed 2 more extraordinary for the last one. So after World War III casually spawned in my base, I finally made the last 2 kibble. And after I went fishing by using a dragon to smite down an aquatic fellow from above, I used the fish meat to make it gargantuan. And with all the kibble ready, it was now time to barter with Mr. Godzilla for his G cells. and it's gonna cost him his life. Wait, this spoils in an hour? Mr. Godzilla is given an extra day to live because I need to tame the fat man. And this level 5 SCP-169 has been chilling right here since I did that dino wipe like 30 days ago because nobody dares to attack him. So I loaded some melatonin into my weapon of mass sleepiness, and bro, if I somehow missed this shot, you'd have to be the worst ARK player of all time. As he fell to the floor, the Overseer, all the way in another dimension, could feel the earth shake. His hitbox was weird, just like the other SCP, but this man's hair strands were kind of freaking me out. And once I was inside of his blubber, I inserted 4 pieces of supersized kibble directly into his double chin, and I was expecting him to take a while to eat his enormous supper. But I wasn't prepared for it to take an eternity. I sat here for 30 minutes, and halfway through day 95, he still hasn't touched his meal. I spent a lot of time cooking that young man. Luckily, the spoil timer inside his inventory was almost 5 hours, and nothing's gonna attack the guy. So I decided to just leave him here, unconscious in the middle of the forest, and I headed to the highlands to prepare a fight with a tyrant. This Godzilla was only level 35, but don't let that fool you. He's the strongest creature in this mod, by far, at least of the tameable ones. I wanted to make sure that I stayed out of his radiation breath attack range, so I used a Blink of Death here to command my army into battle. I guess I wasn't out of range. I ran back over as fast as Carl's little legs could carry him, but it was too late. No, not Rockwell. Leonardo da Vinci was still alive though, and if Darth Vader was actually doing his job, Rockwell would probably be still alive as well. I needed to finish this. We traded kills, but I respawned and he didn't. What a loser. Anyways, it was now day 96. There was a blood moon, so the local heathens all want to murder me, but I made it back. And Leonardo da Vinci had contracted radiation. So I put him in a pod, and this man had over 1,000 G cells and some uranium dust. So I grabbed what I could carry and headed back to my humble abode, where I crafted a few of those aether things, and I needed some artifacts before I could make more. So I decided to check on my plus-sized sleeping beauty. He ate one of the kibble, and this was probably gonna take another 2 hours. This dude's level 5. Imagine how long a level 150 would take. This thing better be good, bro. I spent the rest of day 96 grabbing another artifact and searching yet again for a baby fire spitter from Nigeria. Every time I pass that castle, my FPS drops to 20 and I get jealous of the party they're having over there. And I found this arcane fire spitter, which I don't even know what that is, but over in the Deadlands, I actually found one. A juvenile that spits flames. I was looking for this man, or this boy, for over 20 days, and I had to make sure that I didn't mess this up. I kind of forgot to bring my mutton, but luckily Darth Vader's brother-in-law let me borrow some of his prime meat. Probably won't be returning it. So I equipped some camouflage, snuck up behind a little miniature Nigerian, and fed him some of the primest meat he's ever tasted. He ate the whole thing in one bite, but unfortunately he's a passive tame. So once again, I'm gonna be waiting here a while. I'm kind of a professional at waiting at this point. So while I was waiting, I tried to stun the banana man again. It didn't work. All right, you're getting executed. On day 97, the dude's taming got reset. I don't really know exactly what happened because I was watching YouTube while that happened, but I restarted the tame. And I won't make you watch this, but 30 minutes later, at the start of day 98, during the apocalypse, by the way, this happened. As soon as that man's brain became washed, he immediately started beefing with news reporters. I taught him well. But this made a boomer who loves watching the news every morning very angry. I tried to help, but, my bad, G. The fire spitter who just harnessed the power of electroshock therapy marked Tam number 63 out of 69. And I just survived on 1 health. So after grabbing another artifact, crafting this blue thing, crafting some science experience, and this green thing, I still needed 2 more stable aether crafts for a micro nuke. But it was already halfway through day 98, and time was running out. The entire cast of my solar system-sized life was only halfway brainwashed, and things were not looking good. And 3 artifacts later, I had everything that I needed. For one single micro nuke. And after smelting some more uranium dust into ingots and using the very last bit of my metal, I made a bigger gun. I swear a 5-year-old named this. What is this, Jimmy?
Gun.
What kind of gun, Jimmy?
Anyways, Mr. 200% body fat was still halfway tame, and I just tested it out on a different server, but these shots deal less than 15 million torpor each, if I get a headshot. And that's insane, but Godzillarks have over 100 million. So first of all, I went fishing like a man, and fused the dead fish with Element and the obelisk, noted that this man is still only 50% tamed, and at this point, day 99 was almost over. I really wanted a high-level Godzillark for the boss fight, but since farming artifacts to craft more nuke shots would probably take another 10 days, it's insanely grindy, I had to find and settle for a lower level. I found one, and I had to hit this headshot. I'm so glad I didn't miss that. The torpor of Mr. Godzillark was rising, but it might not be enough. Come on, man, you got it, you got it. Let's go! So I placed some fish meat laced with atomic bombs inside his irradiated esophagus, and 10 minutes later, I didn't have a saddle to test him just yet, and over by my base, someone finally ate their supper. 95% marked SCP 65 out of 69. And if you're wondering what 95% means, that's his body fat percentage. So back at base, I tried to test the dude out. But first of all, he sucks. I mean, he is level 5, but second of all, this man is so fat that his body is collapsing under its own weight. I think I just discovered a new Yo Mama joke. It was actually about to die since he's out of water, so I put him in the pot. I broke my kneecaps and my life, and unfortunately, I can't afford to make a saddle for Godzilla. It would require me farming another 5 artifacts, and it was already day 100. But I still tested him out on some hooligans, and he gets like 200k health per level. Oh my Godzilla. This man was insane. And despite him having no saddle and being level 15 on the tame, he's probably the strongest tame that I have. Anyways, day 100 was almost over at this point, and it was time for one last fight. Well, actually, 2. The Scarlet King and the Tasmanian Devil himself. So I grabbed the pumpkin head to be our healer, the 35 rockets that I've been saving up that probably won't really do anything, and this time, everyone's helping out. So with like 30 SCPs in my pocket and a slightly inflated ego, I said goodbye to the base that got me through some tough times. And I set my sights on the OG SCP-0. The Scarlet King. Oh no! Alcoholic was gone, and luckily I was able to mount Darth Gator. But that random wild Godzilla killed like half of my army, and it was now Darth Gator, my Godzilla, and Mr. Pumpkinhead versus everybody. Things were not looking too great, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet. There's always a bigger fish, but at least I still have these guys. If you're wondering why there were still 3 SCP left, well, I forgot to change the counter one time. I didn't tame the Moose Man, and I also had another really strong boss lined up for after the Scarlet King. That dude was insane. But I have this idea for another Kaiju video, and I might add him in to get my revenge. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, all I ask is that you please leave a like, and make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that Kaiju video. And don't forget to download War Thunder for completely free using the link in the pinned comment or description below on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and mobile to get the massive bonus pack before it's gone. Available for new and returning players that haven't played in 6 months on PC and console. And if you want to see me combine all 12 maps and tame every creature in the entire game, click right here.